They won't be locked up in the system, cause I'm on a mission. Blame it on my youth. Too long I've been out here on my own. Now I'm about to bring it home like a rolling stone. I ain't never been afraid to die. Look a man in the eye. I come to give you what you love. It's time to give you what you love. I'ma give you what you love. Give you what you love.
Yes, yes, yes. This is The Source, normally hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. on Thursday. But thanks to the Director of Programming and News, Dee Patel, and certainly thanks to the lovely Andrea Lawful Sanders, who cannot be here today but will certainly be back in due course, yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, will be sitting in from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. And it doesn't stop there. From 4 p.m. until 7 p.m., I'll be sitting in for the great Nick Taliaferro, who does his great job here at WRD with his show, Evening Word. So, for better or for worse, you got me for 6 hours, 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. And again, big shout out to the regular and best host of the 1 to 4 p.m. time slot, Andrea Lawful Sanders, who does The Source so very well. I'm sitting in just temporarily. She'll be back in due course to do the great programming she always does. Today I have several topics lined up. But as I always say when I'm on the air, I have things that I want to talk about, things that I think are important to the African American community here in Philly, throughout Pennsylvania, in fact, in America and on the entire planet, to think about it. But it's not about what I want to talk about. It's about what you want to talk about. Yeah, I might be the guest host, but really, you all are the hosts because you determine what we talk about or don't talk about. So I encourage you all to write this number down. Well, actually, you probably don't have to write it down because you already know it, but I'll give it to you anyway. 215-634-8065. That's 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. By the way, you can hear us here at WURD 96.1 FM. You can hear us at WURD 900 AM. And you can see us streaming live on WURD Facebook Live, on WURD YouTube, on WURD Twitch. And if you want more information about what we do, just go to our website. That's WURDradio.com. Once again, WURDradio.com. And as you all know, I am an attorney, but I always tell people this. I am not an attorney who happens to be a black man. Instead, I'm a black man who just happens to be an attorney. In other words, I seek revolution. And for me personally, achieving that revolution was for me to become a lawyer. For other people, it could be anything else. But for me, it was to become an attorney. So that's why I always say I am not an attorney who happens to be a black man. Instead, I'm a black man who just happens to be an attorney. And I mention that because I'm going to be talking, I think, a lot about the law. And I want to give you all some legal advice and legal information and legal clarity in regard to, for example, the Derek Chauvin murder trial. I want to tell you what's really going on, and I want to tell you from a black man's perspective. I formed a few years ago something I call the Nat Turner Law School, and it is what it sounds like, a revolutionary approach for black people to the law, where I break it down, as Brother Malcolm says, and you see Malcolm right next to me. I keep Malcolm next to me because Malcolm whispers in my ear, hey, Mike, we know that you think you're a big-time fancy lawyer, but when you talk to the masses, don't talk in that complicated legal jargon. You need to make it plain. So that's what I do, and I'm going to make it plain about the Derek Chauvin murder trial. In fact, one of the things I tell people, say, Mike, I hear what you're saying about you being a revolutionary, but isn't being a lawyer counter-revolutionary? Isn't the law against the masses? Well, that's partly right. The law, generally speaking, is against the masses. The law, generally speaking, is made by the haves against the have-nots. So people say, well, Mike, if that's true, why do you go to court? And this is what I tell them. I say, look, I don't go to court to get justice because there's very little there. Instead, I go to court to expose the injustice because it's a lot there. And if I can effectively expose the injustice, the masses will see it and the masses will rise up. And when the masses rise up, we'll have that revolution we need in order to make sure that justice is done. So I'm going to talk to you about some legal stuff. I'm going to talk to you about a whole bunch of stuff, not just the legal stuff. I'm going to talk to you about a lot of stuff, but mostly the stuff that you want to talk about. It could be legal stuff. It could be cultural stuff. It could be political stuff. It could be historical stuff. It could be current events, whatever you want. Once again, the numbers are 215-634-8065. Once again, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900, 866-361-0900. And again, the topics I plan to talk about, but you might want to go somewhere else, and if you do, we'll go there. But for me, I have one, the Derek Chauvin murder trial, which really pertained to the lynching of George Floyd. You know, one of the good things, if there's anything good about this trial, the good thing is that this is what the presumption of innocence is supposed to be about. You know, when black people are accused of crimes and there's no witnesses, the cases are rushed to trial, the defendant is quickly found guilty and quickly sent to prison. That's not how the system is supposed to work. It's supposed to be a presumption of innocence. So the one good thing about this Derek Chauvin trial, it shows you how the system is supposed to work, where even if you're on videotape murdering somebody for nearly 10 minutes, this is how the system is supposed to work. You're supposed to be presumed innocent. The DA is supposed to put on the case and put on the witnesses and put on the evidence and prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's called due process. I can tell you this. If every poor black young man who went to trial in America since 1776, if they got the same fair due process that Derek Chauvin is getting, I guarantee you that 75 to 80% would have been found not guilty. 75 to 80% of the young black men who've been in jails in America since 1776, 75 to 80% of them would have been found not guilty. Why? Because the system would have done what it was supposed to do. Due process, presumption of innocence, burden of proof, beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what Derek Chauvin is getting, even though he's on video murdering somebody, even though he's on video doing what he's accused of doing. Yeah, well, that's how the system works for white folks in America, middle-class white folks, wealthy white folks, not like that for black folks. But I'm going to break down what's going on and what's not going on in connection with the Derek Chauvin murder trial / Derek Chauvin lynching of George Floyd trial. That's number one. Number two, did you know that just a few days ago, a city councilman filed a lawsuit in federal court against Mayor Jim Kenney, basically accusing Mayor Jim Kenney of being anti-Italian, basically accusing Mayor Jim Kenney of being racist toward Italians. Why? Because Mayor Jim Kenney did the right thing by changing the name of Christopher Columbus holiday, changing it to Indigenous Peoples Day. Who can complain about that? Why should anybody complain about that? Well, a city councilman filed a lawsuit along with a group of Italian organizations, individuals, filed a lawsuit against Mayor Jim Kenney because Mayor Jim Kenney did the right thing by changing the name of Christopher Columbus Day here in Philadelphia as a city holiday, changing it to Indigenous Peoples Day. And why did he do it? Because he knows history. Christopher Columbus is a monster, a genocidal monster. In fact, objectively speaking, Christopher Columbus is the worst genocidal monster in human history. In human history. Why? Because he didn't just slaughter millions of red people and brown people. He slaughtered their culture. It's one thing to kill somebody's body. It's another thing to obliterate their culture. We walk around here in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, in America, and I'd venture to say most of you have never seen up close and personal a so-called Native American, a so-called Indian. Where are they? It was their land, their home. Where are they in 2021? Ask Christopher Columbus beginning in 1492 and then beyond that, what white folks did when they began to move west and west and west and farther west. And by the time they got to California and Southwest America, the indigenous people were gone. So Mayor Jim Kenney did the right thing. That's like, can you imagine, for example, a mayor in a city in Germany celebrating Adolf Hitler Day? Can you imagine, for example, a mayor in a city in the Congo, in West Africa, celebrating King Leopold Day? We know what Hitler did to the Jews in Germany. We know what Belgian King Leopold did to the Congolese in the Congo. Can you imagine any of those leaders of those cities, governors of those states, celebrating in Germany, Adolf Hitler celebrating in the Congo, King Leopold? Well, why in America would anybody want to celebrate Christopher Columbus? I'm going to break down exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you the history. And when I tell you what a monster Columbus was, it's not just me talking. It was a Catholic priest who was there with Columbus. He was so outraged that he said that his eyes couldn't take it anymore. A Catholic priest said that. You want more? A shipmate who was with Columbus said that. Columbus's own city leadership hate progressives. What's going on here in Philly? You see where you got and this is me talking. This is not the radio station. This is me talking. You got a great DA, the greatest DA in history of Philadelphia. Is he a perfect DA? No. Is there a perfect politician? No. Is there a perfect human being? No. But clearly, Larry Krasner is the best DA in the history of Philadelphia in terms of giving justice to people. You would think that the Democrats, who are supposed to be the anti-Republican, you think that they would embrace people like Larry Krasner. You would think that the Democrats here would embrace progressive lawyers who are trying to become judge. No, the city Democratic Party machine turned its back on Larry Krasner, who's doing more for black people than most black elected officials here in Philadelphia. You got some progressive white judges, you got some progressive white lawyers, progressive black lawyers who are trying to become judges. But because, one, they refuse to pay the political machine about $30,000. Do you all know that? And you just can't say, hey, I'm a lawyer, I want to run for judge, and that's it, and you win. No. You got to actually, it's called pay to play. You actually have to pay at least $30,000 as a lawyer to be considered to be endorsed by the party. I said consider. It's not like you pay the $30,000, now you're endorsed. No. They can take your $30,000 and not only not endorse you, they can take your $30,000 and endorse your opponent. And they might want even more. I'll talk more about the details there. And again, what I'm saying is coming from me. It's my opinion. It has nothing to do with WRD. This is me talking. The idea is you got to pay a bunch of money to the Democrats. And on top of that, you can't be progressive. You can't be enlightened. You can't be woke. You can't be conscious. You can't be trying to shake up the system and make things better. The two guys running against Larry Krasner are good men, great lawyers. I know them both. I consider them friends. I'm sure if you ask them, they probably would say, yeah, I know Mike Cord. He's cool. And they would consider me their friend. But just like my brother, who I love, I wouldn't vote for my brother for dog catcher because he ain't right. So even though these two candidates who are running against Larry, good guys, great lawyers, one in particular, one of the greatest defense lawyers in Philly, but politically, I'm not feeling them on stop and frisk. Politically, I'm not feeling them on mandatory sentencing. Politically, I'm not feeling them on mass incarceration. Politically, I'm not feeling them on the death penalty. And especially, I'm not feeling them because the FOP likes them. Think about this. The FOP endorsed Donald Trump for president. The KKK endorsed Donald Trump for president in 2016 and in 2020. The KKK did. And guess who jumped in bed with the KKK to endorse Donald Trump? You guessed it, the FOP. So the FOP likes the two guys running against Larry Krasner. The FOP hates Larry Krasner. So why would you support the guys that the FOP supports? Why would you oppose the guy that the FOP opposes? I'm going to talk more about that later. I was going to talk to you about the May primary election. That's critically important because there are solutions to local crime. You know what they say? They say that politics is local, and it certainly is. We got international issues we need to deal with. We'll do that. We got national issues we need to deal with. We'll do that. We got state issues we need to deal with. We'll do that. We got regional issues we need to deal with. We'll do that. But first, we got to straighten out what's going on right here in Philly. So, folks, you got to pay close attention to that May primary, and you got to make some real changes. Speaking of changes, I'm going to talk to you about the 47 states, including Pennsylvania, that have a total of 361 bills to take away the rights, voting rights of black folks. Let me repeat that. In 47 states, including Pennsylvania, there's a total of 361 bills to take away your right to vote. I got all that to talk about and more. I know callers got questions. I know callers got comments. I'm going to get to all of that stuff. I'm going to be here from 1 to 4, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to be here from 4 to 7. Big shout out to Andrea Lawful Sanders, who does a great job, one of the best hosts on radio throughout the entire city of Philadelphia. Show she does is called The Source, 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. And she would be here today, but had other things to do, but she'll be back, and she'll be back to do what she does so very well here at WURD 96.1 FM. Got to take a break in about a minute or two, and we come back. We're going to talk to Maurice. We're going to talk to Zaire. We're going to talk to everybody. Here's the numbers: 215-634-8065. 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. 866-361-0900. By the way, you can catch us streaming on WURD Facebook Live, WURD YouTube, and WURD Twitch. By the way, before we take this commercial break, let me just tell folks that for the last 2 or 3 days, I announced something called my help list. And over the last several years, I put together this document to tell you how you can get free, quality legal assistance, how you can find out city offices, state offices, federal offices that provide you with free services that you didn't even know about. This document is called the help list. That's the short name, the help list. But the long title is Free Legal, Government, and Private Services Resource List. And it starts by telling you how you can stop bill collectors from harassing you on the phone, whether it's your home phone, your cell phone, your work phone, your friend's phone, your family's phone, anybody. You can stop them from harassing you, these bill collectors, by phone. And if you follow these steps, not only can you stop them from harassing you, if they continue to afterward, you could have them pay you each time they harass you, each time they call you. Think about that. That's the first item on my help list. I'm going to talk more about that later. We got to take a quick break and come back. We're going to talk to everybody. I got to hear from Maurice. I got to hear from Zaire. I got to hear from Bourne. I got to hear from everybody. I got a whole bunch to talk about, but just like since Monday, I didn't get through it all. Why? Because you all kept calling, and that's what I want. I want you all to keep calling. We'll be right back. WURD 96.1 FM.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives. With vaccines, we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That with me live this weekend or catch the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, we'll be discussing Black maternal health with singer-songwriter Melanie Fiona. I'll also be joined by twin MDs, Dr. Brandy Jackson and Dr. Brittany James, co-founders of the Institute of Anti-Racism in Medicine. And we'll hear from an Emmy-winning producer and mother of 3, Sasha Mitchell Fuller. More Than That is brought to you by Pampers. Explore helpful pregnancy guides, free childbirth education classes, and more at pampers.com/pregnancy. Pampers, made from love.
I was trying to do everything holistically. I had my crystals, I had my essential oils burning, my doula was there with the lavender on my forehead. It just got to a point where my blood pressure wasn't going down, and they came in and they were like, you're gonna have to have a C-section. And I just remember saying to God, please surround me with people that are going to support me through this process.
A Part of Me boutique, located 3834 Lancaster Avenue, sells men's and women's clothing, shoes, and beautiful accessories. Items can be ordered if not in the store. Check out our lovely one-of-a-kind chairs with reupholstered African fabric. A Part of Me is open Wednesday through Saturday from 11:30 to 6 p.m. You can expect friendly, professional service and unique finds. A Part of Me boutique, located 3834 Lancaster Avenue, sells men's and women's clothing, shoes, and beautiful accessories. Items can be ordered if not in the store. Check out our lovely one-of-a-kind chairs with reupholstered African fabric. A Part of Me is open Wednesday through Saturday from 11:30 to 6 p.m. You can expect friendly, professional service and unique finds.
The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And that is absolutely correct. You are listening to WURD 96.1 FM. Unfortunately, you're listening to me, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, instead of listening to the lovely Andrea Lawful Sanders. She does her thing here with her powerful and enlightening and pro-black show called The Source, 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. every Thursday. Unfortunately, she can't be here today, but she will be back in due course. So she said, hey, Mike, you can do your thing here for a couple hours, and I'll be back in due course. I said, Sister Andrea Lawful Sanders, thank you very much. Also, big shout out to the Director of Programming and News, Dee Patel, for making this happen. So I'm here from 1 to 4 p.m. We got a lot of folks that want to get in. I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about, but I'm going to put my stuff on the back burner. We got to hear from Maurice. Every time Maurice calls, you can love him or hate him, but you got to admit, he knows what he's talking about. Maurice from Southwest.
Yes, sir.
Yes, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine, man.
Sounds good. Sounds good. What do you have for us today? By the way, man, you taking my shine, because every time you call in and say something, people text and email me and say, hey, man, you should make Maurice a co-host. I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? Can't you give me some props? Go ahead, Maurice.
Man, I can never do your job. I'm a follower. I don't follow people, but I'm a follower of yours, and I've been doing it for a long time.
And I got to tell you, Maurice, before you make a comment, for you to say that is a major compliment, because you're stingy with compliments. What I mean by that is you don't just talk to talk. You mean what you say and say what you mean. If you like somebody, you'll say it. If you don't, you'll say it. That's why people respect you.
Well, one thing I can say is I don't get upset when people call me out, because that means they was listening to what I said. So I learned a long time from Howard Eskin, because he used to be a friend of mine way back in the day when he worked at 610. And he told me, bad press is just as good as good press. Woo. That means they're listening to you. He said he appreciates the people that hate him more than they like him, because they help pay his bills. So, you know, that's why a lot of people don't understand talk radio. People think they got to kiss up to feel like they're important. But you're supposed to challenge people, and you get the best out of them. Now,
and, you know, and that's a great point, Maurice. Not only do you get the best out of them, you force them to explain and defend their position.
Right. And
for me, if I think I'm right, I want you to challenge me so I can prove to you I'm right. But if I'm shaky, I'm going to shut you down.
That's right. But a lot of people can't accept that somebody telling them the truth. They just want to be followers, and that's what's going on with this city. Two quick things I wanted to talk about was city council and sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm.
First, I go with the sheriff's office first. Don't believe nothing they saying. We being sold out. We being hoodwinked. Plymouth Rock has not has landed on us. Once they put this sheriff's cell on the internet, all the black house, we'll never get another shot at getting decent property again.
Explain what you mean by that. Why do you say that?
From Maryland and which is Washington D.C. and New York are looking at Philadelphia as the land of milk and honey. They know they're getting property here at pennies on the dollar, and they buying up everything. And when you go down to the sheriff's cell, at least you could go down there and you could fight for something. But when you're just making a telephone call, one person could call and get up maybe 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 properties. Boom, 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 boom. They already done charted it out. They've been charting it out for the last 10 to 15 years. This is nothing new to them. They've been looking at these properties for years. And Mantua is one of the top areas in this city. A lot of people don't think so, but it's in the middle of everything. Train, expressway, the park, the zoo, the art museum, the colleges. It's sitting right in the middle. And you can get there by public transportation or walk. And people got to understand why that area has already been gentrified to death. Not only city council has also used eminent domain on properties down there, which a lot of people don't know. So I've been saying this for years, but obviously nobody's listening because they're falling for their favorite council people or whoever, believing what they're saying. But when you walk down Lancaster Avenue around 40th Street and start seeing Starbucks and Gold's Gyms popping up, maybe you'll believe. And I'm just letting people know that they're trying to pass this, to do this on a computer. And if we sit back and let it happen, we all going to fall. Like North Philly's not North Philly. The black bottom is just the bottom. It's not black.
Woo! Real talk. Real talk.
You know what I'm saying? Now, let's get to the city council with their nonsense. You know, I've been looking around all the country at all the city councils around, big cities, little cities, and they're able to say, hey, Curtis Jones, how come you're in charge of safety and I don't feel safe? You can't do that at that council. If it's not on the bill, they don't allow you to talk to you. If you call in to give your to speak to council, half the time, if they don't feel like it's right, they won't call you back. They won't even call you and say you can't be on. See, and when they keep talking about you only got 2 to 3 minutes to say what you got to say, they only got to listen to you one day a week. They can't hear what you got to say. Remember, they are public servants. We don't work for them. They work for us. They're spending our money. People don't understand it. They're spending our money. And half the time, they don't even listen to each other. So what makes you think when you up there speaking, they're listening to you when they know they only have 3 minutes to drown you out?
So, Maurice, before we have to go to our next caller, and I want you to make your final comment, but what's the solution? How do we deal with that? What do we do now? If they don't let us speak, what's plan B? What do we do in order to be able to speak?
We need to get everybody to get Darrell Clark's number and the mayor's number, and we need to step to both of them. We want a new way you're running city council. We don't like it that I can't walk in there and address a council person and tell them what the problem is in my neighborhood. Why can't you do that? That's what city council's for. All this nonsense come to their office. No, we got one central place we can go to one day a week and say, hey, look, I got a problem. And say what you got to say. And it should be at least 5 minutes to get off what you got to say. And when that 5 minutes off, you out, the next guy. And if it goes to the end of council, that's okay. But in closing, I would like to say, look, people, we got an election. You know what you got to do. Don't act dumb. You want the days of Lynn Abraham, Seth Williams back? Then stay home. Watch Barney Miller or something. But if you care about this city and you want things done, just step out your door and look out your neighborhood. When the last time you seen a cop walk by? When the last time you seen a cop speak to you when they rode by as a neighbor? It's like they're not cops; they're security guards. We don't have no rapport with the police. I said weeks ago that they should have put cops at rec centers because that's where the good kids go. And now we got 2 that have been murdered because they ain't listening to what I'm telling. So I'm just telling you right now, you got to pay attention to the nonsense and stop falling for the okie doke. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you. And again, we encourage everybody to call and say whatever you want to say. As long as you're courteous, as long as you're respectful, you can say whatever you want, even if you disagree. We want to hear enlightening stuff from everybody. And speaking of enlightening stuff, we've got some information to share with you regarding the great Paul Robeson. You notice I said Paul Robeson, 2 syllables, not Paul Robeson, 3 syllables. The correct pronunciation is Paul Robeson. Why am I talking about that now? Well, because something very important is coming up very, very soon. And we're going to hear from Christopher Rogers, and we're going to hear from Janice Sykes-Ross. So right now, let me make sure we have them both lined up, and I believe we do. Christopher Rogers, how are you today?
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Court?
I'm doing very well, but I think I mentioned before, I appreciate the respect, but Mr. Cord is my father. I'm Michael, but thank you anyway. And also joining Mr. Christopher Rogers is Ms. Janice Sykes-Ross. How are you today?
I am good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and I want you two to do all the talking. I just want folks to know that we have, as our first 2 guests today, Mr. Christopher Rogers. He's the program director for the Paul Robeson House and Museum. We have Ms. Janice Sykes-Ross, who's the executive director of the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and Paul Robeson House and Museum. And let's start off with you, Christopher. What's going on, and what does the public need to be aware of?
The public needs to be aware that tomorrow should be a global holiday. It is the birthday of one Paul Leroy Robeson, a great that has a long, deep history with Philadelphia, and at the Robeson House, the Paul Robeson House Museum, located at the corner of 50th and Walnut Street in West Philadelphia. We're closed for the moment, right, due to safety protocols. But we'll be having a virtual celebration tomorrow evening. That is going to be amazing, from 7 to 9 p.m.
And I'm so glad you shared that, and I'm so glad you played it up the way you did, talking about a national holiday. I'm going to come back to you to have you expand upon that. Why is Paul Robeson so important? Well, in fact, let me pose that question to Janice Sykes-Ross. As I pointed out, she's the executive director of the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and Paul Robeson House and Museum. Certainly, she's going to play a major role in tomorrow's event. But let me throw the question to you. Why is Paul Robeson so important? For those who don't know a lot about Paul Robeson or might know just a little, tell us why, from your standpoint, why we all should know about the great Paul Leroy Robeson. By the way, I just stole the Leroy from Christopher. I didn't know his middle name was Leroy, but now that I know it, I'm going to be repeating it like I'm a scholar, just like you two are. But let's get back to you, Janice. Why is Paul Robeson so important, not just to Black folks in America, but to everybody, especially the poor folks in America?
Well, Michael, those are great points that you're bringing up. And let me, first of all, congratulate you and thank you for making a point of pronouncing Paul Leroy Robeson his name correctly with the 2 syllables, because that's the first messaging that I think we want to make sure that people understand that he had a very unique name. He made a point of wanting you to pronounce his name correctly. So that, historically, we understand the significance of him. And then secondly, for those that may not know that much about Paul Robeson, is he used his position, his status, his celebrity, and all of those things that he could bring to gain attention to the injustice of Black Americans in this country and to the injustice that was happening around the world. So I think as we really think back on what's going on right now, we don't have to think back too far. We can just turn on our TV and we see that the injustice that is happening. And, you know, we want the celebrities and we want the people that see this injustice to use their position and their status to bring it forth, to call it out, as the young people say, and to really use the example of Robeson to do that.
I really appreciate you explaining it so concisely. That's important. I'm going to pass it over to Christopher. I'm going to pose the same question to you, and I'm sure you're going to highlight some key points about Paul Robeson. If I presented that question to you, Christopher, why is Paul Robeson so important? Okay, his birthday is coming up. What's the big deal? Tell us, Christopher, what is the big deal?
Yeah, I mean, so Paul Robeson is known as the great forerunner for his commitments and contributions to Black struggle in America, but also like really, Pan-African struggles across the world. So if you, he's, really good friends alongside his partner, his life partner, Aslanda Robeson. They're really good friends with folks like W.E.B. Du Bois, working with folks like William Patterson. One of the things that I would ask for anybody who's listening to look up is the We Charge Genocide petition that was posed to the United Nations in 1951. And just as Janice mentioned of like the current events that we're working through, if you read that document, which was, presented to the United Nations in 1950, it lists many of the same offenses and the same struggles that we are navigating today, and showing how the United States government and capitalist interests are entangled within the oppression that Black people face in this country. So they call him the great forerunner because he's one of the people who is leading these calls and is working alongside organized folks, right, to lift up these movements and put them on a platform that's really on the global stage, right? Folks would say in the 30s and 40s, Paul Robeson is the most famous American, not just Black American, but most famous American around the world, because he traveled to places like the Soviet Union. He traveled to places like China. He worked with people in like lifted up the struggles of workers in Wales. He did movies about it. He's singing at Sydney Opera House. These are like, so there is connections that he has to labor movements, to workers movement, to of course the Black struggle. And then I could go so much like deeper into his work at the Council of African Affairs and lifting up anti-colonial movements that's happening all across the African continent. He's really good friends with Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, Nnamdi Azikiwe out of Nigeria. These are people that, through his world travels, that he built strong relationships with, him and his partner, Aslanda Robeson. So the work that they have done is so underappreciated and under-recognized. So part of the work that we do at the Robeson House is really bringing that legacy to the forefront and showing how he's impacted and influenced folks like Harry Belafonte, like Danny Glover, like Ruth D. and like Cornel West. Like these are people who look up to his legacy and say, I want to do the things that he was doing with his work.
Very well said. For those just tuned in, you heard the voice of Christopher Rogers, the program director for the Paul Robeson House and Museum. We also have joining us Janice Sykes-Ross, who's the executive director of the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and Paul Robeson House and Museum. We got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk to Christopher and Janice about a number of things. One, what's this thing about Paul Robeson being a socialist, being a communist? And is that a bad thing? I also want to talk to both of them about the sacrifices that he made, to his career. We'll talk to both of them, both Christopher Rogers and Janice Sykes-Ross, about Paul Robeson, an important event taking place tomorrow. But first, a break here at WURD 96.1 FM.
COVID vaccines are here, and Black physicians and scientists help to develop them. So I feel good about getting the vaccine. And with new forms of the virus now spreading, I know we need to keep up everything we're already doing. Masking up, keeping that 6-foot distance, and avoiding crowds. COVID's been doubly tough on us, so let's double down to take it down. We can do this. Learn more about getting the vaccine and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Every day brings an opportunity to connect to your community and one another. With AARP, you can connect without ever leaving home. Just click, and you're at a movie watch party with other fans, chatting in an online book club, or drinking a cup of joe with fellow family caregivers. Connections like these remind us that community is more than just where we live. With virtual offerings available here in Philadelphia, you can click to connect at aarp.org/near you.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet, hold on. Whew, but you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy. Are your children getting on your last nerve? And they do know where your last nerve is. This time of taking flu shots and getting testing for the virus and making decisions on which vaccination you should take. You may be all stressed out. Yelling at children and young people and hitting them will not accomplish the goals that you want. Here are a few thoughts and suggestions that are nonviolent and will bring you peaceful results in your family relationships, especially during this pandemic time. Lower your voice as you speak. Sing songs like BB and CeCe Winan. Lord, lift us up where we belong. This may lift your spirit. You may want to be alone and just think sometimes. Just got to get by yourself and think. The children are watching. They too are grieving COVID-19. 500,000 people. Many of us will remember. 500,000 people. We will remember this for years to come. Yes, we must learn to breathe again.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Yes, you certainly are listening to The Source, which generally is hosted by the great Andrea Lawful Sanders. However, she is not available today, but don't fret, because she will be back to do what she does so very well every Thursday and other times as well. Thursday from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. The great Andrea Lawful Sanders, who hosts The Source. Today, it's yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America. It's my honor to have as my first two guests today, Christopher Rogers, the program director for the Paul Robeson House and Museum, and Miss Janice Sykes-Ross, the executive director of the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and Paul Robeson House and Museum. And I want to hear from both of them. First, Chris, I want to get to you. And one, tell us again what the event is tomorrow, what time, and how people can register. And after you get that information, I want you to go to the point I made about Paul Robeson being an anti-capitalist, being a socialist or a communist, and what that's all about. And then I want to turn it over to Janice to tell us about the sacrifices that Paul Robeson made. I know athletes and entertainers today are afraid to say anything controversial because they're afraid of losing a paycheck. They're afraid of being a millionaire 10 times over as opposed to 20 times over. But Paul Robeson took a different approach. So, Chris, one, tell us the date, time, and location, date, time, and registration information for the upcoming event. Talk to us about the capitalism, socialism, communism. Then I'll turn it over for closing comments from Janice Sykes-Ross about the sacrifices made by the great Paul Robeson. Christopher, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. First and foremost, you can visit paulrobesonhouse.org, paulrobesonhouse.org, where you can find information about the 123rd birthday celebration for Paul Robeson, which is taking place tomorrow night. It'll be streaming online via YouTube, and so you can find the information about how to register and RSVP on our website, paulrobesonhouse.org. And we're doing that work in collaboration with the Claudia Jones School of Political Education. And Claudia Jones was a very dear friend of Paul Robeson, was actually the United States Secretary of the Communist Party at the time. But I should, as we talk about the role of Robeson and being an anti-capitalist, a socialist, that Paul Robeson many people would sort of, I mean, he has many communist friends. There's a quote where he basically says that, you know, I have seen communists on the front lines struggle to support people all around the world. So I think that was important for him. However, he was not a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. So that's important to acknowledge.
Great point. Yes.
But Paul Robeson was a socialist, right? And so Martin Duberman, one of his biographers, says Paul Robeson believed that the ideal of giving the highest priority to the needs of the poorest people was what he expressed through his socialist ideal. So we know that, right? And there's many in socialism and in communism. They're not just, you know, white or like basically European-led movements. There are a lot of black communists as well. William Patterson, Benjamin L. Davis. You can read the work of Aimé Césaire. You can read the work of Nkrumah and his work around African socialism to see how many black people and African people have explored these ideals.
And you can even listen to the speeches by Dr. King himself.
Ooh, talk about it. Talk about it. So, you know, Paul Robeson's anti-capitalist nature was really showed up in the ways that he really believed in workers struggle, right? So when you see something that's happening in Alabama today, like the way Amazon workers are to build a union, Paul Robeson was on the front line of many of those movements, in particular because there are black people, and Claudia Jones would especially say, right, as a black woman, would especially say the ways that black women have been triply oppressed, right, within this country. So Paul Robeson, Aslanda Robeson were on the front line of thinking of worker struggles, thinking of how we can shift the structures of our economic system, and to really lift up the dignity of all peoples and really get us out of endless war and into a world of peace. And he fought for that alongside W.E.B. Du Bois, alongside so many others, and I'm proud to be a part of that legacy.
I got to tell you, Christopher, I love the way you broke it down and explained it. The other thing is people need to understand that capitalists have done a great job in turning socialism into a monstrous concept. Because if you really know what socialism is about, it's simply about taking care of the basic needs of your fellow human. Food, clothing, and shelter for everybody. What's wrong with that? Why is it a bad thing as opposed to capitalism, which is basically the maximization of profits? If you want to look at slavery, for example, slavery was the highest form of capitalism. It was the perfect capitalism because it was about draining as much as you can from the laborer without providing any compensation. So I'm so glad you broke that down. We're running out of time, but we got to get the final comments from Janice Sykes-Ross, the executive director of the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance / Paul Robeson House and Museum. Janice, what I'd like you to do is to repeat what Christopher said about tomorrow's event, the time, how folks can find out more information. And once you repeat that, comment on the sacrifices that Paul Robeson made in his personal and professional life. The microphone is yours, Janice.
Yes, so tomorrow night we're having the 123rd birthday celebration for Paul Robeson. You can go to paulrobeson.org to our website, or you can look it up on Eventbrite and register. This event is in conjunction with our reopening. The museum has been closed for a year, and of course, because of that, we suffered some losses. Tremendous losses. So this is a fundraiser as well. There's no amount too small or too great. So please keep that in mind because, as Chris was saying, all of this that we do at the Robeson House is really to highlight the life, the work, the falsehood about Paul Robeson. We want people to realize that you can use your talent, your art, the music, sports, movies, any contribution that you have as a person to really bring about social change. And so that was the life of Paul Robeson. And I know we're running out of time and we could go on, but I do want to make one final point that also collectively, we want to make sure that we're engaging whites and other nationalities, as you see happening around the Black Lives Movement. And that's one thing that Paul Robeson was excellent doing as well, is making sure that he could surround himself with like-minded individuals. So whether you start in your neighborhood, your community, your city, all of this makes a difference to collectively come together to make a change.
Very, very well said on the part of Christopher Rogers, the program director for the Paul Robeson House and Museum. Very well said by Janice Sykes Ross, the executive director of the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and Paul Robeson House. Folks, you got to participate. You got to check out the powerful event tomorrow evening. For more information, go to paulrobesonhouse.org. And from what I heard, it's either going to be Denzel Washington or Idris Elba or Michael Cord is going to be the moderator. One of those three. Whichever it's going to be, you all will enjoy it. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Janice. I'm looking forward to tomorrow evening.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And folks, I'm going to repeat that information later on because I want you all to participate. But remember, we got to get to our callers because folks are waiting patiently. Folks have called us at 215-634-8065. People have called us at 866-361-0900. We got some other guests lined up. I know we had Zaire. I know we had Bourne. We're going to try to get everybody who we possibly can in. I'm not sure if they're still on, but let's check. Zaire from South Philly, line 2. Are you with us? And let's see, Zaire going once, Zaire going twice. It appears that Zaire is gone, but in all fairness to Zaire, we did have to go to our guest, so Zaire had to wait just like Bourne. I'm not sure if Bourne in North Philly is with us. Let's check. Bourne, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Mike.
All right, Bourne, how can we help you or how can you help us here at WURD 96.1 FM?
Okay, good afternoon, Mike. Good afternoon, WURD listeners. I have a couple points I want to talk to. Firstly, I want to say... Take your time. Okay. I want to give kudos and a shout-out to Joe, Brother George and Maurice, and even Germantown Joe. My reason is they come on and sometimes they do something that needs to be done. They get on the case of our local politicians.
Woo! Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it pains me to have to do that to a city council that is predominantly black.
Great point.
But we have to come to a decision and a determination. Who are they fighting for? Who are they working for? Are they representing us or are they representing some other parties? So, I'm not going to go into details. I wanted to give them kudos for that because it has to be done. And that kind of segues me into my next point, which is how egregious it is for the way people, their lack of support for our DA, Krasner, and to break their norm of always backing the incumbent, I find it extremely offensive that now they decide. I remember years ago, people who I've known that ran for office, and they would tell me, well, the party's not backing me, and I personally thought this individual would be a great candidate for that city council rep or city council at large rep seat. And the city council and the city itself, the Democratic National or the Democratic Party in Philly would back them. But all of a sudden now, they're just going to stay neutral when it comes down to Krasner. And Mike, I agree with you 100%. When it comes down to Krasner, I don't agree with everything he does. However,
and you shouldn't.
The other alternative is a lot worse.
Woo! One of those three is going to be the DA. One of those three. So who will choose?
And you know what's going to happen, Mike? If Krasner doesn't get in, they're going to come down hard on crime, but they're not going to use laser focus. They're going to go after all of us. They're going to bring back stop and frisk. They never let it go, but they're going to do it full force.
It's going to be on steroids. Yes.
Some of these cops had that attitude that they had in New York when Giuliani won, where they said, "Oh, it's Giuliani time." I think when they shot Amadou Diallo or one of our other brothers in New York, one of the cops was quoted as saying, "It's Giuliani time." So they're going to see that they can do what they want in the name of bringing the criminals to task. And I watched the thing with a federal...
And boom, we're running out of time. We're up against the clock. You got about 20 seconds.
Okay, well, last me, I'll go to my very last point. And it'd be dereliction of duty if I did not say this. We have to go out and vote, especially in this the midterm election, because all the problems that we have and we're facing, that's not the end-all, be-all, end-all, tell-all solution, but that's the first step in solving it. And, Mike, you were very instrumental in me not allowing my dissatisfaction with our local politicians to stop me from voting. I never stopped, but I was close to it.
Very well said. Boone, we appreciate your call. We got to run. We got to take a quick commercial break. We're behind schedule. And we come back, Zaire, you're up. First to break, WURD 96.1 FM.
Philly Peace in Progress nonprofit organization was started to create a positive change and bring awareness to the growing drug and gun violence in Philadelphia. Philly Peace in Progress is looking for volunteers to make a change with organized programs, mentoring, problem solving, conflict resolution, and more. If you are interested, email Nelson at phillypeaceinprogress.com or call 267-529-7255.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives with vaccines we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, Word Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on wordradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. This is Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black. Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source
on Word Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Yep, that is correct. You are listening to The Source, normally hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders. However, today, Sister Andrea cannot be here, but will be back in due course to do what she does so very well, Thursdays from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. and other times here at WRD. For now, for the time being, temporarily at least, it's yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America. We had some guests lined up, and we still got them, but we had to bump those guests and put them back for a few minutes because we got to get to our callers. We got Zaire back, so we got to go to talk to Zaire. We got Maurice from North Philly, so we got to talk to Maurice. First up, Zaire. Zaire, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
How you doing, Mike? I appreciate you and Sanders for letting you occupy her space, brother, because she couldn't have found a better black man to stand in.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much.
And, thank you for your commitment and conviction to us as a people. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, brother. And
you know what they say? You know what they say? To whom much is given, much is required. I was fortunate. I came out of North Philly, got into college, got into law school. I can't turn my back on the people who made it possible for me to get into college and get into law school. I'd be a traitor if I turned my back. So I appreciate you saying what you said.
No, bro, but you're an example for all these young brothers who are in North Philly who feel like they can't define a purpose. They can look at you and say, I can see my goals in Michael Core. He did it. I could do it.
20th and
So,
York,
I mean,
North Philly. Yes, sir. By the way, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Make your point. That I want to ask some follow-up questions.
my
But go ahead.
point
The time is yours.
I mean, I've been in Philadelphia for 50 years, and city council has been a detriment of the city. Straight up. Now, if black people in Philadelphia would get together, we make up 45% of the population. They're trying to push us out now and turn this city into a metropolitan city.
Good point.
But if we come together and put our money together, we can stand and find our place. But as long as we beg them to do stuff and we don't get our own candidates and vote them in there, guess what? They're going to have us pushed out of the city with bags. My concern is this. My daughter had a case, and I just want your opinion on it. She had a discriminating case right here in the city of Philadelphia. And it happened in 2018. And it was housing discrimination.
Okay.
And she wants to know, and I want to know, okay, 2 years went by. Can she still take legal action against those individuals that took her through that?
It depends. Generally speaking, and clear exceptions in certain cases, you normally have 2 years to file such a lawsuit. However, there are extenuating circumstances. I need you to do this. Give me a call at 215-552-8751. That's my attack line, ATAC, Avenging the Ancestors Coalition. Call 215-552-8751, or even better, email me at michaelcordx, the letter X, Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Cord, C-O-A-R-D, the letter X at gmail.com, and just give me the specifics. And once I know all the details, what happened, exactly when, I can give you a better answer. But generally speaking, it's 2 years, but there's always exceptions. So call me, 215-552-8751. Email me, michaelcordx at gmail.com. I'll have an answer for you.
All right, brother. She's going to email you right now, and I appreciate you. You're a strong tree, bro. Standing in Philadelphia for us, for Philadelphians, bro. And I'm with you 100%. I appreciate you. I
appreciate you saying that.
When you follow people and you still see them standing and holding down their space, that's the person that's an example for you. I'm a little younger than you, but I see you, bro.
Okay, all right. I
appreciate down your spot.
I appreciate you and the great work you're doing for the community, and thank you very much for giving us a call today. Thank you. I also want to thank Bourne. I also want to thank Maurice, everybody that has called and tried to call. We want to keep letting people get in. You know the numbers, 215-634-8065. That's 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. 866-361-0900. Let's talk to Maurice in North Philly. Maurice, how are you today?
Hey, Mike, how's everything?
Doing well. Good hearing from you. How can we help you, or how can you help us?
I want to make some points, Mike, and I'm glad that you brought up when you had your guests on. You talked about economics and the economics history of slavery and to maximize profit on slavery. I think that's important because it goes towards what's going on in Georgia, in Atlanta specifically. As I move forward, I talked about the importance of understanding what institutions came from slavery and that profited and still profit today. These are the institutions we have to attack over the election and the voters' rights issues. And it's important that to understand that the Power 5 conference are in the South. These 5 Power 5 colleges conference are the linchpins and the longevity and historical record of slavery to today. These colleges have the same power as banks does. They are fiduciary responsibility, they are community development financial institutions, and they do the same as bank. They have more than bank power than bank because a lot of these colleges are the author of gentrification. They are right gentrification. So moving forward, as we boycott, if we want to knock a hole in white supremacy, we start with the colleges because these colleges in the Power 5 conference making billion dollars off of 2 sports. basketball, and football, who are predominantly that participate are the descendants of the enslaved people. This is William Roden talking about the $40 million slaves as part of that book he written. But if we take them Power 5 conference and the 47 states that are playing with the rights and the civil rights of our people, we would cause a creative, we would cause an earthquake hole in white supremacy, which they cannot put back together, which would give us leverage to talk about residual reparations, because we need residual reparations. We don't need a one-time reparation. We need a reparation for everything you stole from us. We need residual income. Then we will be able to go back and sit down and talk about we can come back with a community reinvestment plan. Then we can discuss the community benefit agreement. These are the steps that we have to take to make a whole in white supremacy in America. The second point I want to make is this.
And we got about 30 seconds left, but go ahead.
Okay, the second point I want to make is this, Mike. As I explained to your host last Saturday, that whole thing's on economics. Philadelphia is the poorest, largest city in America. But yet we're number 4 in America in the economy. They told me that I need to take and do in Philly, and we can teach Atlanta. Atlanta is number 10th in the country in the economy. But what Atlanta has that Philly don't have, black businesses in Atlanta get 25% of government contracts and contracts that come to Atlanta. That's what happened with the enslaved people in Atlanta. And Philly, we had less than 1.03% black ownership from the enslaved and for the development of enslaved people. But yet, in Philly have 2.5% with Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Delaware. But that's combined with the Africans, Caribbean, and the descendants of enslaved people. The descendants of enslaved people are getting left behind, Mike. We're not at the table. We don't have a clue. And for that matter, we're being hurt because other people, not to say it's a great thing that we got other black people helping, but the descendants of enslaved people are getting left behind, job creation, black ownership, and black investment. And they taking other people and mixing us in and saying that the descendants of people are rising and we've fallen behind what Dr. Dennis Claude Anderson called the permanent underclass. Thank you, Mike.
Maurice, we appreciate your call, appreciate your comments, and certainly appreciate your information. Thank you very much. We got to get to everybody who's calling in, waiting patiently. On line 3, we have Kimberly. Kimberly, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Hi, good afternoon. I was calling to get some legal advice.
And that's what we're here for. Thank you very much for calling. We can help you with all types: criminal law, civil law, family law, administrative law, estates law, real estate law, tax law, parking law, whatever you need. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Okay, well, say if you have a case that was 2 years, and you had about 3 lawyers already. The second,
now, let me ask you this. When you say a case, do you mean like an accident case, a personal injury case?
A landlord-tenant court matter.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
And you have the case was settled in court.
Mm-hmm.
The judge told the other party to pay a certain amount, and the other party didn't pay. They filed an appeal.
Okay.
But they offered to settle what the judge said to settle in court.
Okay.
And now the attorney that's representing me, he's basically not doing his job. He's waiting. He's paddling his feet.
Let me ask you this, because I don't want you to disclose too much of your personal business over the radio, but let me ask, so are you the tenant or the landlord?
I'm the tenant.
All right, so you're the tenant, and just so we're clear, and again, I don't want to disclose too much, but let me just say this quickly. Call me at 215-552-8751, 215-552-8751, because when I hear about specific legal issues for callers, I don't want to put their business out there, and I don't want to go into detail. And most important, this is WRD. This is not the Michael Cord, law office. So I don't want to take up WRD's time talking about a specific case with a specific person. But I'm here to answer general questions. But yours requires specific answers, and that's cool. Just make sure when you call me, 215-552-8751, when you leave that message, make sure you mention that you called the radio show, and that way I'll remember who you are. When you call, make sure you leave your phone number, and also make sure you leave your email address. By the way, you can either call me at that number, 215-552-8751, or if it's easier and you have any documents you want me to review, email me at michaelcoard@gmail.com. That's MICHAELCOARD, the letter X, @gmail.com. And I'll be able to go into more detail with you and provide you with all the information you need.
Thank you so much.
You're certainly welcome. That was Kimberly. And please, Kimberly, call me, email me. Before we get to our guests, before we take a break, and we're trying to track down our guests now. If we find our guests, fine, we'll do it. If we don't, no big deal. We'll have the guest later on. It could be later during the show. It could be later on Sunday during my radio courtroom show. It could be next week. First and foremost, our callers. And our callers include people like Maurice and Zaire and Maurice from North Philly. And by the way, the first Maurice is from South Willie and Kimberly. Let's keep things moving. We got Chris on line 2. Chris, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Well, sir, I need help from you.
Okay, that's what we're here for.
Because, see, the thing is that the cops have people put bugs in my house, right? So every time I come out, they follow me. It's been going on for 10 years. The cops been harassing me, surveilling me, and they have cameras and bugs in the house when they come out. And the therapist I was seeing, she told them how to play with my head. They've been harassing me. I've been to the DA office 20 times. I've been to the police office station 40 times, and they just keep playing with my head, saying, we don't know who they are. You find out who they are, then we'll do something. It's like, that's your job, officer. Why are they following me? Why are they saying nasty things about on buses, on trams, on subways, and they follow me everywhere?
And let me say this. I'll say to you, Chris, what I said to the previous caller, Kimberly. And first of all, if folks have particular issues, whatever type, could be landlord-tenant, could be employment, could be criminal. If it pertains to you, then don't leave your real name when you call here. If your name is Joe and Joe has this particular problem and you want me to answer it over the radio, don't say your name is Joe, because I don't want your personal business out there. Say your name is Steve or Martin or whatever. So I encourage people, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I just want to give people a heads up. You really might not want your legal information out there, especially if it pertains to criminal law related matters. But again, if you want to give your full name, that's fine. You can give your full name, your date of birth, your social security number, your DNA, whatever you want. But I'm just want to protect your privacy. But it's up to you. You can leave whatever name you prefer. And by the way, if folks have any personal issues, any detailed issues that they need to spend time discussing, then we can't do that here at WRD. This is not the law office of Michael Cord. This is WRD 96.1 FM. So if you got a quick question by saying, hey, Mike, I heard about this thing called Stop and Frisk. What's that? Okay, I can explain that. Hey, Mike, I'm hearing about this book called 13, and it's also turned into a documentary. What is that about? And I can explain that. So if it's a general question, I encourage you to call. But if it's a personal thing, folks, we can't. In the same way that I don't do WURD business in my office, I can't do Michael Cord law office business on WRD. But I want to be clear, folks. I'm not saying don't call about legal stuff. I want you to call about legal stuff. I want you to call about criminal law and civil law and family law and administrative law and estates law and real estate law and tax law and parking law. I want you to, but it's got to be a generic question, a general question like, hey, Mike, I tried to sue this doctor because he injured me a couple years ago, and somebody told me the statute of limitations is 2 years. Somebody else told me it's 5 years. What is it? I'll say, well, if it's a personal injury case, it's 2 years. That's it. Move on. But we can't get into what we would get into if you were at my law office. Out of respect, not only for my time, out of respect to the other callers, and most important, out of respect to WRD. We can't do Michael Cord law office business doing WRD radio time. Just like we can't do WRD radio time when I'm doing my Michael Cord law office business at 1650 Market Street. Anyway, folks, I want y'all to know I encourage you to call in. I want you to call in to talk about whatever you want, but just remember, it can't be a personal 101 law office consultation. But please understand me. I want you to call me about general legal issues because I was blessed to be able to go to law school, and I want to give this legal advice to the masses, to the people. Let's go to Nightstown and talk to Dolores. Dolores, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Hello, Mr. Forrest.
How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm going to ask the question about, if I can ask the question about mortgage company.
You certainly can. And I'm glad, I understand you said if I can. I don't want to scare people away. I want them to ask, but it just can't be like a law office consultation. We go back and forth with questions and answers. But the general question is fine. And if people want to follow up, they can call me at that number or that email address. But Dolores, whatever you want to ask, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to know, I was dealing with City Group mortgage company. They sold my mortgage like 3 times. Could you tell me if I could get in touch with someone to find out how I can get my mortgage out of the hands of the third person that they sold it to?
Dolores, you're making this too easy for me. That's a very easy question. I got a very easy answer for you. I hope you got a pen and pad. I specialize primarily in criminal defense, but I got a good friend, a very good friend. He's the best real estate attorney in the region. And he listens to WRD. Again, he's a close friend of mine, and he gives free advice to people over the phone. As long as they say, hey, Mike Cord and WRD referred me. Best real estate mortgage attorney in the region. His name is Ken, last name West, W-E-S-T. Call Kenneth West at 610-446-9000. 610-446-9000. Make sure you tell Attorney Ken West that Michael Cord of WRD referred you. If you have trouble reaching him, don't worry. Call me back at 215-552-8751. 215-552-8751. And if Ken is tied up, I'll give him a call myself and ask him to spend a couple minutes calling you back. But first, call Ken West. Let him know you referred by us. 610-446-9000. He's an expert in mortgage law, real estate law, all that stuff.
Thank you so much, Mr. X, and have a great day.
I appreciate you saying that, Mr. X. That sounds good. Thank you very much, Dolores. And again, I don't want people to be intimidated by what I said earlier. All I'm saying is that it can't be like a 5 or 10 minute law office consultation about a personal thing. It can be a general 1 or 2 minute thing, and we encourage that. So we appreciate that call from Dolores. Let's keep things moving. We got Gary in Southwest on line 3. Gary, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Okay, how you doing, Mike? I just wanted to say I was listening earlier, and when you said slavery was the highest form of capitalism, and you were so correct, and we're still suffering from that today. And I just want to thank you for giving us information and being an advocate for our people. Also, one of the other callers called in about the people who are supposed to represent us, and a lot of them look like us in Philadelphia. And I retired from city government. I worked for 3 city controllers. I worked on the inside being an auditor, and it's like, it breaks my heart even now knowing how our communities are so grossly neglected. And I don't know how these individuals could look in the mirror at themselves on a daily basis. I'm praying that we come together as a collective, and we need real change, Mike. I'm sorry. We need real change, and those people who are that look like us but are really not representing us. And it angers me, the fact that they can come in our community every once in a while. You should have meetings coming into our community to engage your constituents on a regular basis.
Amen.
Now, with the murders going on in the city and the gun violence, I do not understand why we're not in a state of emergency.
Great point. Great point.
If these murders were happening in Chestnut Hill or predominantly white communities, trust me, there would be something going on, Mike. We have to stop accepting this. But thank you, brother. Thank you for what you do.
Woo! I appreciate you. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate the call from everybody who dial 215-634-8065. 8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We got to take a commercial break in just about a minute or so, but I want to encourage people that please be patient. We'll get to you. I'm sitting in for the great Andrea Lawful Sanders, who does an excellent job here at WRD on Thursdays from 1 to 4 with The Source, one of the best programs in Philadelphia radio. So big shout out to Sister Andrea Lawful Sanders. Yours truly, Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, is sitting in for her temporarily today. And she will be back in due course to do what she does so very well. We got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to make sure we get our callers in. We got Prince from Schuylkill. We definitely want to hear from Prince, but we got to take a commercial break in just a few seconds. And in connection with that commercial break, I want to provide some important information, folks. So listen closely. WRD Radio, in partnership with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Independence Blue Cross Foundation, Penn Medicine, and LabCorp, have teamed up to launch Go to Know. Go to Know is a new public health campaign to reduce colorectal cancer in the black community. Request your free, yep, I said free, easy at-home colorectal cancer screening test called a FIT kit. The FIT kit is designed to provide early detection of colorectal cancer. The FIT test doesn't require any fasting, doesn't require any colon cleanses, and it can be done in just a matter of minutes. Most important, you'll learn how to make sure you and your family members can stay well and live a long, healthy life. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner or call 1-877-422-2030. That's 1-877-422-2030 to learn how you can get your free, yep, I said it, free at-home FIT kit screening test. We'll be right back. WURD 96.1 FM.
You probably heard it before, but one of the best ways to stay safe from COVID is by avoiding crowds. That's better. Also, when you're out in public, make sure you stay 6 feet away from strangers or people you don't live with. It's okay to say, "Can I have some space, please?"
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much.
If you're gonna have a get-together with friends and family, have it outside. And remember to keep those 6 feet of social distance. And last but not least, wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth with no gaps. They slow the spread of COVID or new forms of the virus called variants. And make sure you get your vaccine when it's your turn. We're all out here trying our best, and it's making a difference. We just gotta keep it up. We can do this.
To learn more about slowing the spread, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery. Right here on WURD Radio.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Yep, you certainly are. You're listening to The Source, normally hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. on Thursdays here at WRD 96.1 FM. Sister Andrea could not be here today, but don't worry, folks. She'll be back in due course to do what she does so very well at WRD 96.1 FM. Today, you have yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America. Folks who want to get in, all you got to do is dial 215-634-8065. That's 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. Once again, 866-361-0900. I want you to hear from, and I certainly want to hear from Prince. Prince always has some enlightening information to share. Without further ado, my good friend and yours, Prince, Princeton Schoolkill. How can we help you, or how can you help us?
Hey, good afternoon to you, alum.
Yes, and I love it. Every time we talk, you always throw the Cheney thing in there, and I love that because people need to know what Cheney, in fact, all HBCUs are about, but you got to start with the first, Cheney University.
Let's start with the first. So I wanted to just ask these two questions right here. Number one, can you enlighten people what the charging unit is? Because when the cops come lock you up and they say they locked up for aggravated assault, the charging unit put aggravated assault, simple assault, reckless endangerment, having an instrument of a crime. These are people who are police officers, but they sit behind the car and they charge you with a bunch of charges. And then when you have a good attorney, if you have a good attorney when you go to court, and they put the cop on the stand, the cop doesn't readily understand these charges as well, and a good attorney could pick him apart. But a lot of people, think that the cop themselves is charging, the cop is making the arrest. But you can speak better towards that, because I've seen some cops get shredded on the stand because they didn't thoroughly understand what the charges meant. And so when they talk about criminal reform or prison reform, we need to reform that, because if the cop unlearned high school diploma at best, and he doesn't understand the code book, which all judges and cops should understand, then it is incumbent of us as a race of people to make sure that we have those classes to better understand, so we can, because 90% of us go get white attorneys when we get in trouble. We don't have any friends, but when we get in trouble, we go and get some white guy who thinks he's going to do a better job in the courtroom. Somebody told me, whether you graduate from Harvard or graduate from Howard Law School, when you get in the courtroom, we both the same when it comes to the law.
Very well said. And let me just say this in connection with that, Prince. One of the greatest attorneys in Pennsylvania history, arguably in American history, just passed away a few days ago, Richard Sprague. And Richard Sprague was the go-to guy for everybody. Let me tell you this, man. As great as he was, I beat Richard Sprague in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He was hired by DA Lynn Abraham in connection with the private criminal complaint I filed when the police murdered Donta Dawson. So the DA Lynn Abraham didn't handle the case herself. She reached out and got private counsel and retained the office of Dick Sprague. So now Dick Sprague filed something called a King's Bench application to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's Michael Court from North Philly against the great Dick Sprague. Who won? Michael Court won that. That's not to say that Dick Sprague wasn't one of the greatest, but here I am, a kid from North Philly, a kid from Cheney State College at the time. I'm going against Dick Sprague on a big police case, and who walks away victorious? He tried to get the Supreme Court to grant his application. I argued that they should deny it. Supreme Court agreed with me, denied it. So you're right. And one final thing I'll say, and I give you the final word, I'm also going to answer your question about the charging unit. But what people need to realize when it comes to situations like that is you got to get a lawyer who not only is knowledgeable but cares about you. And for a while, after Johnny Cochran did his thing for OJ, black lawyers were getting clients. That only lasted for about a year. Then it faded away, and they went back, our people, to doing what they do. You mentioned the charging unit. Before we end this, Prince, anything else you wanted to mention?
Yeah, and if you have influence, and when you tell somebody something good, then they follow up on it. That's why the young lady called about the landlord-tenant court. So all the people who do have influence out here, tell somebody, if your word is good and your character is good, then that's how we save each other. And the last question I wanted to ask you is, can you explain to folks derelict of duty? And can you also explain if someone is in derelict of duty and it causes harm, can they be held liable and can they be sued? So I want you to explain that, and then when we talk again, I'll tell you why. But just so they can understand what derelict of duty is, because some people that are in derelict of duty, if they're a city employee, sometimes they have the city has immunity. They're blocked from being sued. But then in other parts, if it's detrimental, like the people who drive a school bus, if they hit somebody, the city is held harmless unless they're negligent. And so I think we need to know, because these killings, they call them senseless killings, but what makes it so damning is that we have no suspects or we haven't found anybody. And you know how hurtful that is to hear somebody say somebody done killed my loved one and we haven't found anyone, and then the police officer checks out and go home, does his 8 hours or 14 hours and goes home. So we need to know what derelict of duty is, and do we have any recourse if somebody's in derelict of duty. And I'll hang up and listen to you. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Prince. And I will answer both questions regarding the DA's charging unit, regarding the legal concept known as dereliction of duty. We got a guest lined up who's waiting patiently, but I noticed we got callers calling in, so we're going to have our guests wait just a minute, and let's go to East Falls and talk to Greg, and then we'll get to our guest. Greg, East Falls, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Yeah, how you doing, Mike?
Doing well, man. Good hearing from you.
Same here. Like yesterday, I wanted to clarify something when you was breaking down first degree, second degree, and third degree murder. Basically, my question was the way Larry is charging people with murder. I make sure I'm correct, he's charging them with first degree, third degree, both, so they can't get bail until it's straightened out at the preliminary hearing. Because the young lady I'm talking about is charged with first and third, but she's not given bail. And clearly, this case he's probably going to win the case. At least she's overcharged because it was a situation where she was protecting her family, and all that's on video. But yet she can't get out of prison on bail because of the way that Larry has charged her. So I wanted that clear.
Okay, well, let me just respond to that, then get you a quick follow-up before we get to our guest. I'm so glad you called back to state that, because I always say that elected officials tend to do what elected officials do, whether you like them or dislike them. And I love what Larry Krasner has done as DA, but I got to tell you, Greg, I've been rumbling him in court, not him directly, but his staff. I've been rumbling them in court on the very issue you mentioned. Let me give you a prime example. My client, young woman, nurse, no criminal record, had a quote-unquote thug boyfriend. I hate that term thug, but you understand what I mean when I give you an example. So he beat her up several times. The last time he beat her up, and I had photos, black eye, busted lip, she got a PFA, protection from abuse. Now, because he was living that thug life, he would keep his gun in her house. So he beat her up several times, beat her up the last time. She got a protection from abuse, and he was supposed to stay away. He calls her, threatens her, sends text, all that kind of stuff. One day he breaks in the house. A scuffle ensues. She reaches under the bed, pulls out the gun, and shoots and kills him. Now, yeah, she killed him, but he had beaten her up before. He violated a PFA. He broke in the house. The DA's office charged her with murder generally. And when you say murder generally, that includes first, second, and third. So I couldn't even get her out on bail until I got the preliminary hearing, made the argument to the judge, and in all fairness to the DA, they agreed that not only was it not first or not second or not even third, it was a manslaughter charge. And we went to trial. The jury found my client not guilty of all charges in about 5 minutes. So the question is, why did the DA's office even charge that first or second or murder? Now, their argument is that all the facts are not in. All they know, like in the case I just mentioned, that a man got 5 bullet holes in his chest and that my client was seen by a witness doing the shooting. That's all they see. And they say, we don't know what was going on before. We just knew this woman shot this man 5 times in the chest. We're charged with murder, and we'll sort it out in court. So that's probably their approach. But it's not a fair approach. It's not a good approach. If this had been a situation where it was an apparent robbery and she shot somebody in the chest 5 times, okay. But you knew she didn't have a record. You knew he just got out of jail. You knew there was a protection from abuse order. You knew it was his gun. So why does she have to sit in jail for 3 or 4 weeks until we got this thing sorted out? And there are other cases that are as egregious and some less so, but I get your point, and that's why we need to put pressure on the elected officials that we like. Even if we like Larry Krasner, we got to raise hell about that. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, and you're absolutely right. It has happened to me in at least 2, possibly 3 cases.
And it's a case, I don't want to get into it, that's actually, everything you said sounds like the case that I'm talking about. And this is a Muslim sister, no record, in guard, practicing, and she was protecting her children. One who was in the
Do this, Greg. Call me, man. I'll be off the air by 7 o'clock. I want more details about this, because if I find out that the case you're talking about is very, very similar to the one I just mentioned, I'm going to raise hell about that. I'm going to confront the DA, because if you're saying you know somebody where it happened, I know somebody where it happened, and 5, 10, 20 more people, then we're going to have to raise the issue. The thing I appreciate about Larry Krasner, if we bring these facts to him, then I'm sure he's going to make some change. The other thing is that, as you know better than I do, being involved in law enforcement before, sometimes the general in the headquarters doesn't know what the soldiers on the battlefield are doing. That could be the case. It might be, it might not be, but we want to find out for sure. Hey, man, give me a call so we can discuss the details, and you and I can raise hell on these 2 cases.
Mike, one last thing I want to say. Prince put up a real quick point, and it irks me that our people always talking about, I'm not saying there isn't white good lawyers, but some of the baddest lawyers, the most experienced lawyers in this town, I'm going to bring up a name that probably people don't know, Charles Joey Grant. He could master a jury. Charles Bowser.
And don't forget Cecil B. Moore.
Cecil B. Moore. Let's go to Darryl Irwin.
Yes.
Adam Renfro before he had his problem. Romaine Phillips. Don't get me started on black lawyers, because
let me say this before we go, and I'll give you the final word. My thing is that everybody deserves a fair trial, especially poor young black men in the hood who make mistakes. And I'm not going to give all the details there, but let me just spend 10 seconds and I hear your final comment. I was in court one day doing my thing. I had like 2 or 3 cases in a row, and I was knocking them out left and right. First one, not guilty. Next one, not guilty. Third one, not guilty, or dismissed at preliminary hearings. It was a group of young black guys sitting in the back, and they had this Italian lawyer representing them. And these young black guys who were involved in this drug thing, I'm not judging them on that. I'm trying to set them right, but I was there as a lawyer, not as their father. Long story short, I'm knocking out my cases 1, 2, 3 in a row. This one guy who I could tell was the head of this little crew, he came up to me as I was even said, "Sir, we saw you doing your thing. We want to fire that guy right there, and we want to hire you." And I've been representing them guys for the last 10 years, and there's been not one person has been found guilty. Not one person has been sent into prison. Not to say that they didn't do anything wrong, but the cops have to respect their rights and can't violate their constitutional rights. So if you think my client got drugs in the car, you got to do a legal stop. You can't do stop and frisk. And if you do, and I find out, I'm raising that. So my point is, these young guys got this Italian lawyer because they thought that's what the young guys and young people are supposed to do. I've been representing them now for about a decade. Not one of them has been found guilty of anything. And I'm sure I'm charging them about 50% less than the other guy. So it's funny because the Italian guy was able to represent them based on the fact that he was white. But they had to see me first in the courtroom so I can prove to them, and then they say, okay, we want that guy. But for white people, they don't have to prove anything. I'll give you the final word, Greg.
No, I just wanted to finally say it because I like the fact that Prince brought that up, and it irks me. It irks me to no end that we always got this white Jewish lawyer thing, and I'm not against, I mean, like stop that. If you get a black lawyer or a black contractor that do anything you don't like, don't go and...
You judge all black lawyers and all black contractors, but let that Irish guy screw up your plumbing job. You'll go to the other Irish guy. But if a black plumber screws it up, you're going to go against all black plumbers.
Yeah, man. I think that needs to be talked about a lot, and I will do that.
That's a great point.
Mike.
Hey, Greg, thanks a lot for dropping that. That was really important. We got our guests coming up. So, folks, I know we got folks lined up to offer their 2 cents, their 20 cents, their $2, whatever they got, but we got to get to our guests. This person, this lawyer, this angry black woman has some important information to share with us. So we want to make sure that we hold off on the calls for the time being. Don't get me wrong. You can call us 215-634-8065. You can call us 866-361-0900. But we're going to have you on hold for a bit because for the next 20, 25 minutes or so, we're going to talk to the angriest black woman in America, a.k.a. Harriet Tubman with the law degree, a.k.a. former president of the National Bar Association, a.k.a. Madam President Pamela Means. But first, a break. WURD 96.1 FM.
Every day brings an opportunity to connect to your community and one another. With AARP, you can connect without ever leaving home. Just click, and you're at a movie watch party with other fans, chatting in an online book club, or drinking a cup of joe with fellow family caregivers. Connections like these remind us that community is more than just where we live. With virtual offerings available here in Philadelphia, you can click to connect at aarp.org/nearyou.
Nappy style hair products are formulated for today's black men and women's hair, embracing ancestral hairstyles. Come and experience these products: beard oil for men, cream paste, and napping gel growth oil for braids. Go to www.nappystyles.com or The Movement in Mount Airy, 7133 Germantown Avenue, or African Cultural Art Forum, 221 South 52nd Street, or Culture Exchange, 1450 Point Breeze Avenue. Be happy to be nappy.
Barbers on Broad. We know grooming is important. Let us show you why. Our barbers have over a decade of experience providing quality services in a professional manner. We specialize in all the classic styles and cuts while delivering the sharpest finishes. Located at 1220 North Broad Street, Suite 3, best in town, best on Broad, Barbers on Broad. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next service. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation. The Mattress Man is a second-generation family-owned mattress specialist business since 1988. Open 7 days a week, located at 7421 Stanton Avenue. The Mattress Man discounts Serta, memory foam, orthopedic, and Comfort Tech mattresses every day. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure you get the best price and best service. The Mattress Man offers same-day delivery on most models to most areas. Ask about the WURD discount. Call 215-424-5550.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
That is correct. You are listening to The Source, which is normally hosted on Thursdays from 1 o'clock p.m. until 4 o'clock p.m. by the lovely, pro-black, unapologetically black Sister Andrea Lawful Sanders. However, she's unavailable today, but she'll be back in due course to do what she does so very well here at WURD 96.1 FM. But right now, today, from 1 o'clock to 4 p.m., it's yours truly. In fact, from 1 o'clock to 4 p.m., and then from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m., yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America. Speaking of angry, and by the way, when I say that, that comes from a line by the great James Baldwin. James Baldwin said to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. That's why I and my guests, Madam President Pamela Means, why we're so angry, but not in a destructive way. We're angry in a constructive way. We use our anger to build up an army, particular racial and racist oppression. My guest today is Madam President Pamela Means. I call her Madam President because she was the president of the NBA, that's the National Bar Association, the largest organization of black lawyers and judges, not just in America, but worldwide. She's at a major mega law firm, Thompson Coburn, based in St. Louis, but with offices all around the country. She specializes in corporate law, in public agency law, in banking law, and nonprofit organization law. Despite the fact that she got all this fancy stuff in her fancy resume, she's just a sister, an angry black sister. Without further ado, my good friend and yours, in fact, co-host for today, Madam President Pamela Means. How are you today?
I am doing excellent. Can I tell you I was enjoying your audience and their comments?
Yes,
they were bringing it. They were bringing it.
Yes.
You have real brothers coming on, dropping knowledge and speaking power. I would just like to second the motion that black lawyers are some of the baddest lawyers you will ever see. And Philadelphia, you ought to feel blessed to have one named Michael Cord. He's the only brother that I know who put his money where his mouth was. And when the system would not try a white man for killing a black man, Michael Kors took it upon himself to do that. He didn't seek glory, and he wasn't trying to seek attention. He wasn't trying to be the next Thurgood Marshall. He wasn't trying to be the next Charles Hamilton Houston. He was just trying to be a black man who happened to have a degree that he could use to help get another, to help get justice for a black family that everybody was going to forget about when this was over.
And,
So,
you know, I love
I'm
when you
glad
tell
to
that
be up here
story.
with you.
In fact, you tell it better than I do because you tell it with passion. By the way, I know folks are calling in. We're going to get you on in about 20, 25 minutes. Right now, we're speaking with our guest, former president of the National Bar Association, the largest organization of black lawyers and judges in the country, not just in America, Madam President Pamela Means. So I see we got folks lined up, Edna and others. We will get to you as soon as we can. Please be patient. And you just talked about black lawyers, Pamela Means, and you often use the quote from Charles Hamilton Houston where he said to be a lawyer, specifically a black lawyer, is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. And you do what I don't do. You name names and you take it to people. And you often talk about lawyers who seem to be more concerned about personal gain and glorification than fighting for the masses. I want you to talk about that. You and I both call them vultures and vampires, but I also want you to talk about voting and what's happening on the federal level that people need to follow and support. So first, you're a big-time lawyer and a big-time firm, but you always keep your finger on the pulse of black folks in the hood. Why do you do what you do, and why do you think other lawyers have gone for the money? And that's all. I want to be clear. It's nothing wrong with lawyers making money, but if you prostitute yourself for money, then just like a human who sells his or her body for money, you're prostituting yourself because you're selling your brain for money. Both of you are prostitutes. Let's talk about that.
But you know, Michael, not only what you said, but let us think about it this way. Not only is the black lawyer selling their brain for money, but they're also inflicting additional pain on a family that already has experienced the traumatic.
Now, explain that, because people would say, what is Pamela talking about? At least these lawyers are getting $27 million for the family. Explain the real deal.
Well, let me tell you, when you see Michael Brown White post on a post, don't hire Ben Crump because he can't get you justice for anything. Ooh. And I remember she said that on Facebook. Ooh. And one of my brothers came back and said, I show some respect for the brother. Show some respect for him because he's the only one will go into these places. And I had to check that brother and say this. How many sons have you lost at the hands of the police? How many daughters have you lost at the hands of the police? Families typically who have never, ever had to experience or encounter a lawyer. All they want, Michael, is justice.
Yes.
All they want is for somebody to know their child's name. All they want is for the system not to screw them over after it has robbed them of the child that
That's
actually, and the child that they created. Can you imagine a father who has raised a son, whether he was there all the time or some of the time? Fathers look at themselves as reflections. That's a reflection of who I am and who I should have been and who I could have been. And then you want him to go further than what you are. Can you imagine, a father doing that and then entrusting someone to represent them, and they only come to find out that the person is stabbing them in the back?
Ooh, and it seems that the person is only present when the lights and cameras are there. But when the lights and cameras leave, the person leaves. I'm going to talk about all of that. Plus, I flew at that 27.
Let's talk about Lee Merritt. What you just
Let me say this before you go on. You don't back up. When it comes to naming names, you name names. Keep talking.
These were protesters that he encouraged to come to a protest. And the brother said, I should have known this was shady. Had I known he was involved, I wouldn't be involved in any of this, because he put our lives at risk and he didn't show up to the cameras on that. Now, look, brother, I wasn't at the protest. I don't know what exactly transpired. But when the folk on the ground that ain't got nothing to gain and they putting their bodies on the line in a pandemic to call for justice. When they begin to speak, we got to listen. And if we don't listen, Michael, how can we hold doctors accountable, right? How can we hold white folks accountable for racism, but we don't hold our own accountable for self-hatred? We don't hold our own accountable for manipulation. We don't hold our own accountable for being a parasite. And that just doesn't go for lawyers. I have civil rights leaders that fall in this category. I have some doctors that fall in this category.
Pastors,
that feed off of our community. And then when they're gone, the person is left damaged. I have seen and worked with families who said, I feel like I was raped all over again. Or when I was president, I had people coming up to me. And that's why I went to every state I went to, Michael. I went there, and I do this, Michael, because God gave me a chance and an opportunity to get something. I'm just lucky, Michael, to be a little black girl from East St. Louis who happened to go to undergrad free, who happened to go to graduate school and then go to law school free. I'm just a person that got lucky. And if I don't allow the luck that I got to bless those in my community who wasn't able to get lucky, then I'm not a part of the community. Because we should be able to rise and fall together, not one grabbing out of the can, rise and fall together. So I do this for that. Number two, I have 4 children. And my oldest child is a boy. And he's as dark as the night and as beautiful. And he thinks he got it going. He got a little chip on his shoulder, Michael. He thinks the police may roll up on him. We live on a golf course. He had a little girl from East St. Louis live on a golf course. He may be walking, and they may be thinking he's trying to break in some houses. My son may look at him like, who are you? And take that as resisting. And my son could be dead. So this is what I tell people. I'm fighting hard right now to change state, local, and federal laws because if it ever happens to me, you can't march with me. And you won't be, you will not be preaching my child's funeral. Okay?
Wow.
Period. And that's the stand we have to take. It's got to be for the betterment. And, Michael, this is why I say, I applaud the chief in Minnesota for tearing down the blue wall and do what he did. But let me tell you what I don't applaud him for. And if y'all know anybody in Minnesota shouldn't be waiting on the verdict in this case. They should be lobbying at the police station asking him why you didn't have a rule that would allow him to put his foot on his neck.
Great point.
Anyway,
great point.
30-some states have eliminated this. You talk to ex-police officers, they couldn't believe that that's still in this book. Well, guess what, Minnesotans? While you're around and talk about you want a victory in this case, because this is not America on trial. This is a use of force on trial. But that chief hasn't taken that provision out of his book. He took the other ones out, Michael, but he didn't take that. And so, Michael, I do this, and I only connect with people who want to do the movement building. I'm not into moments. Moments don't do anything for me. And we have a tendency, and that's why we have lawyers who think they're at a play, or they think they're in a movie, or they think that somehow this is glory, okay? They do moments. And
that's a great point. That's an excellent point.
That's a moment. That's a moment. And then when nothing changes in the system, all you've done was set yourself up for another black woman or another black man to actually get killed. Then you run back for that moment. Then you go back to the next moment. Then you go back to the next moment. But where is our fight against systematic racism? Not just
let me say this. We got to take a quick commercial break. And folks, you listen to, as I pointed out, an angry black woman. She's Harriet Tubman, with a law degree, and she's breaking it down. You know, I'll call out in a general way lawyers who I see as vultures and vampires, but Madam President Pamela Mean does not make it general. She doesn't signify. She calls out names. And what she's saying makes perfect sense, because we're not saying that lawyers shouldn't go out there and fight the good fight and get compensation for their clients, but you can't be the kind of lawyer who simply comes around, get the 40% contingent fee, and then move on to the next case. Settle every case. Don't go to court to litigate, just settle. And don't do anything about changing the system. Let's do this, Pam. We want to hear from you. We got to take a quick commercial break. We're up against the clock. We want to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to bring you back right after the break, because we want to hear your fire, your passion. We want you to tell us what these lawyers should be doing. We're going to hear more from Madam President Pamela Means, but first a break. WURD 96.1 FM.
At Bank of America, we believe in the power of collaboration to create jobs and fuel economic opportunity. That's why we're working with local organizations to help people get the skills they need and build a growing pipeline of talent.
I'm Jim Dever, Bank of America Greater Philadelphia Market President. Our partnership with Philadelphia Youth Network is just one way we're taking action to help more members of our community. What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, Equal Credit Opportunity Lender.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show, with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
That is correct. You are listening to The Source, normally hosted by the lovely Andrea Lawful Sanders. Every Thursday from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. Sister Andrea is not available today, but she'll be back in due course to do what she does so very well here at WURD. Right now, it's yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, speaking to my co-host, Sister Madam President Pamela Means, one of the top lawyers in the city of St. Louis, a partner at the mega law firm Thompson Coburn. But you wouldn't know that listening to her. You would think that she's just an angry black woman on the corner talking to the people and riling them up. She reminds me of a 2021 version of Harriet Tubman on the corner, in the hood, with the people, taking them to freedom. And she's taking this audience to freedom right now. Madam President, please continue your points about the vultures and vampires and what they should be doing. The microphone is yours.
Can I say this, Brother Michael Cord? No one is perfect. And when I am not being a social engineer, brother, I expect you to check me on it. And I don't know if you remember this conversation, and I'll give you an example, then I'm going to tell you what I think they should do. I remember we were talking about sexism in the black community. And I was telling you it is really perverse. And most of the time, black women will lean out so black men can lean in. And Dr. Michael Cord said, you know what, I've never thought about it that way. He had a show with 3 strong sisters on it, breaking it down. And you know Dr. Michael Cord said on his show, he asked me, Sister Pam, what should we be doing?
Yes.
We need you in the room. Talking to your brothers like we need white allies in the room. And Michael Cord, and you know what the words came out of his mouth? He said, my sisters, I'm sorry that I haven't been doing that.
That's real. That's real.
He didn't get angry. We weren't attacking him. He acknowledged that this is something area that he just didn't pick up on.
And you know, Pam, before you go on, I thought I was a good guy when I'm around my fraternity brothers and they're saying these foul things. I'm thinking just, I don't say them, so I'm good. But I never called them on it. I never checked them on it.
That's right. That's right. And that's what we require of our white allies, or whatever you want to call them. Because most of the time, they just want to wear safety pins to let us know that our allies, they never want to have the tough conversation with the folks sitting at their dinner table in the boardroom. So here's what I think that black lawyers that work in that area should be doing. They should be educating them on the difference between use of force and qualified immunity.
Break
and
that
I
down.
This, Michael. Okay, so these are two defenses that a police officer and a city can use if you sue them or if a prosecutor decides to prosecute a cop. Now, I want you to keep it in mind. It's two sides. There's a civil and there's a criminal. Under the criminal, and I heard a brother talking about the police arrest these people and they don't know the law, and there should be a law saying they should know the law. I said, those officers should be fired. They should not be patrolling the ground. They should be on desk duty. Because if you don't know the law and you trying to oppose it against me, brother, I don't need to pay you that money to harass me. So what they ought to be doing, Michael, is something you did, educating them on how to film the police. Michael had to say, F the police. F the police was how you could properly film
Great
the police.
point. Great point. Yes.
And you know what I did, Brother Michael, when we were going around to know your rights because it has saved your life? I inserted Brother Michael's stuff into my life and sent him to his website. I didn't take credit for it. I said, this brother been doing this. Go check out his work. They should be educating our community. And use of force is the amount of force that an officer can use to eliminate any danger that a person is doing and any danger someone else is doing in the surrounding, or if the person is a danger to them or to someone else. In this case, in the Shaolin case, you're seeing use of force on trial this week. And every expert and every chief has said it's excessive. Use of force is under Tennessee versus Gardner, it's a subjective test. And it says, if I believe that you are a threat, I can use any force that I believe is reasonable to stop you. That's a lot of eyes. And you know, since slavery, they've had a narrative on us.
Yes.
We're not really human. We are immune to pain. We're these big people that will overpower and overtake the little bitty white people. And that's why they say these things. They make us out to be monsters. Qualified immunity is what stops when you file a civil lawsuit. You have to be able to demonstrate that this person acted outside of the scope of his authority. He didn't have the right to do anything. And the city either knew about it and they didn't do it. See, if you can't show that the city knew about it and was on notice for the exact same thing he did, then the city can get off the hook. But the police officer may stay in there, and when he gets to trial, the judge will only allow in evidence, hear me, of crimes that are similar to the one you're suing about. His whole record doesn't come in unless his whole record is somebody standing on the neck. Qualified immunity gets me paid after my son is living. Use the force standard, okay? It keeps my son alive. So the second thing they should be doing is any settlement they make, Brother Michael, they should be including reform. They should be included. They should be getting a copy of that handbook. They should be looking at those rules and regulations, and they should be telling them what they should do. Look, that's what my brother Andrew Strong did in Chicago when the Obama administration would not do a consent decree with Chicago because that's their boy, that's their state. Democrats are wrong, too. This brother forced them to do it. And this brother is a social engineer, and he was the one that the impetus for change. Every lawsuit he files, every lawsuit Michael filed that deal with this, they come out with some change.
In fact, let me say this, Madam President, because I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, you can do what lawyers do, seek compensatory damages, meaning financial relief for the parties. Okay, that's good. In some cases, you can even seek punitive damages when the conduct of the officers are egregious. But the point that Madam President Pamela Means is talking about is a consent decree. In other words, injunctive relief, not just pay money, but make changes. Let me give you a prime example, then I'll turn it back over. I'm a part of a six.
I like it when we talk. This is good.
Yeah, I know that. In fact, you encouraged me to do that. I'm part of a 6-member team of social engineers. We're representing 237 people who were attacked by cops at the end of May and early June in connection with the George Floyd protests. Yeah, we filed our major lawsuit seeking financial compensation, but check out some of the other things we're looking for. Number one, we're seeking to defund/defang the police. Take all that unnecessary weapons, military weapons from them. They don't need it. That's number one. Number two, we're talking about having community input in who gets hired as a cop and who gets fired as a cop. That's through a community policing commission. That's number two. Number three, end, stop, and frisk immediately. That's got to be part of it. Number four, decriminalize low-level crimes. Curfew stuff, loitering stuff, marijuana stuff, just stop all that. In addition, de-escalate use of force. Don't come out with batons and guns and nightsticks just because somebody is drunk on the corner. That's number five. Number six, and we keep it moving, we want to make sure that a civilian oversight commission has subpoena power. They can force the cops to come in and testify about who they shot or who they beat. In addition, we want transparency in police records. We want to know how many complaints were made against what police officer and when. And finally, here in Pennsylvania, there's something called Arbitration Act 111 of 1968. That pretty much says that, hey, the internal affairs and other policing agencies inside the police, they don't have any real authority. So what we want to do is, and this is what this law says, Arbitration Act, it pretty much says that nobody can control or monitor the cops but the cops. The cops can set up these arbitration panels so that even if cops get fired, even if they get kicked off the police department by the commissioner, through these arbitration acts, they can get their jobs back. We're calling for an amendment of the Arbitration Act of 1968 in Pennsylvania. Those are 8 things, and I'm going to turn it over to Madam President Pamela Means. We got 237 plaintiffs, and we're pushing for that. In the George Floyd case, they had the best police brutality case in the history of the world. If there was a case that you can use to get these 8 reforms I just mentioned, that was the case. Why wouldn't you push for these reforms in the case with the strongest evidence of police brutality in the world?
And brother, at the minimum, tell them to take that doggone procedure out of your book.
I love it. I love
that. You should be doing that 8. You should be doing. You should be doing. And another thing, we should be doing, Michael. See, that's calling us to be accountable. But brother, what you're doing is you're reforming the criminal justice system with your law degree. That's what Charles Hamilton Houston was talking about. Here's what we cannot do, though: give a person credit for what somebody else did. Those reforms happening in Minnesota are happening because those young people hit the street.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Get up. So don't come to me if you're going to try.
I mean, think about that, Pamela. You got people with GEDs who made more reforms than top lawyers with JDs.
Because you know why? Because we joined the choir of the do-nothing preachers. Now, I need you to hear this. I'm an ordained minister, and my husband is a full-time pastor. You got to call it out wherever it is. There has never been a movement where the church, black church, hasn't been actively involved. Somehow they think that these millenniums are beneath them. Wow, in a pandemic, you're going to end up having no members when you get back because these millenniums ain't going to fool with you. And they're not going to wait for you to negotiate. And so they're not going to wait. So we cannot, Michael, allow anyone to take credit for what they did. Second, the police chief made some changes himself, right? He said, I'm not going to negotiate anymore with the union. So what does that tell y'all? That tells you that around the country, police reform and everything is really controlled by the union. But that also tells you that the chief of police and the city got a right to negotiate a deal with them, and they can take it or leave it because it's taxpayers' dollars.
I love
It
it.
shows
I love
us what they can do. So they need to educate, Michael, and then they need to call out every member of the CBC, of the Democratic Party, on the House side and on the Senate side.
Yes.
They should not be sending up a George Form reform bill that doesn't have a use of force standard in it. What does that mean? If we had a use of force standard, and what use of force does is says, here's when you approach a situation, there are steps you have to take before you get to deadly force.
Yes.
You cannot go to deadly force first. Have you talked the person down? Right? Have you then tried your billy club? Have you tried? It goes on. And last but not least, at the bottom is deadly force, whether it's with a gun or with a maneuver that can cause the death.
Great point.
And that's what they should have done. They should have done what California did. Because, see, if California law is ever challenged, I think it's going to be overturned by the Supreme Court. So Congress has to act, and we can't let them off the hook. So while y'all think y'all hit a glory, y'all hit a slam dunk, where is the use of force? And we got to hold Kamala Harris and Joe Biden accountable. In order to get black votes, they put on an ad that said the thing that will be included in their criminal reform bill would be use of force, because Kamala knows that impacts the prosecutor case. I would just tell them to say they need to do this, Michael, also. They need to explain to people that it's not the police that charge people, it's the prosecutor. And the prosecutor don't have qualified immunity. The prosecutor has absolute immunity. The judge has absolute immunity, which means that they can do something, withhold evidence, and they're not even going to be challenged on it. And if they're challenged, it's going to be thrown out, because being a prosecutor, you get the discretion to decide who charges. You need to vote out every prosecutor that's not doing his job. And it don't matter if they look like you, because you don't want that brother in Kentucky, and you certainly don't want the brother in St. Louis County. You want somebody that's going to administer justice like Kim in St. Louis. That's what you want, who then does what Michael is doing. Michael, on his end, he is doing reform within the cases he's filed. Kim has overturned. She's doing some of the stuff Michael said. She doesn't prosecute those level crimes. And on her Brady list, this is the cops who you won't take any evidence from, and you won't accept cases from them. She got a long list on her Brady list. If you ever been caught in police brutality, if you ever been caught up in such and such, she won't even take your case to trial. And the city of St. Louis, the white folks, they were angry, but Kim persisted. See, and that's what we should be doing as lawyers. We should be, one, educating our people. Two, we ought to be holding each other accountable. Number three, ask for civil reform. And when faulty civil reform is put up, we need to speak up and say it's not enough. It's not sufficient. And we need to sometimes vote out some of these people that's been sitting there for 50, 40 years. Let me tell you something. I love Congressman Clay, but Congressman Clay was not in touch with the millennium in the Missouri area, and they voted his tail out. We got to start saying, you work for us, we don't work for you. And that's the reason why, Michael, you may have to take a break, but that leads into the voting. That leads us right into the voting suppression that is going on now. I call it.
In fact, let's do that now, because you have about 3 minutes left for this interview. So go ahead. You on a roll. Don't stop.
Let me tell you, as of March 24th, state legislators have introduced 361 bills with restrictive provisions in 47 states. That's 108 more than the 253 restrictive tally that they did as of February the 19th. That's a 43% increase, okay? And I'm going to tell you, while y'all watching Georgia, you need to be watching your own state. Because, again, Philadelphia has 3 restrictive bills. Now, will your governor veto it? Is there enough votes in the Senate and the House to overturn it? And it is Philadelphia HB 25, Philadelphia PASB 322, PASB 402. And they all deal with absentee voting. You guys got to get on that. You can't let that sit and ride, because if you do, you don't have a right to complain when it gets implemented and you say, I didn't know. So, Michael, we got to hold the Senate accountable. We got to tell them, you don't get to tell us that you're not going to do away with the filibuster. You don't get to tell us that. The filibuster means that they would have to have 60 votes to pass this. But if they got rid of Senate Rule number 22, because it ain't number the rule, they got rid of it, then they would only need 51 votes. Y'all, we need to tell the Democrats to make it clear. You got 2 years to get this stuff done. You got to get this done before the election, because I'll tell you why. If it does, it solves all of those bills that were passed, even in Georgia.
Wow.
And you can't just pass H.R. 1.
Wow.
H.R. 1 is insufficient. It addresses some issues, but it doesn't address all issues. You need H.R. 4. And that's what I'm saying. Lobby your local people, lobby your congressional people and those in the Senate, and tell them, Democrats in the House, put H.R. 4 on the floor right now. Send it over to the Senate so these bills can be looked at and taken up back to back. Because, Michael, if they don't do that, H.R. 4 will never, ever go and pass in the Senate. So what they gave was the low-hanging fruit. But I can't say this, Michael, about H.R. 1. It gives right back to felons to vote in federal elections.
Wow. You heard some fire and some passion, but more important, some information from our co-host. And she did a great job, Madam President Pamela Means. She's a partner in the law firm of Thompson Coburn, based in St. Louis, Missouri, but offices all over the country. She's the former president of the National Bar Association, which is the largest organization of black lawyers and judges on the planet. She specializes in corporate law, in public agency law, in banking law, in nonprofit organization law. Just a great lawyer, but as you can see and hear, committed to the people. In our final few seconds, Madam President, can you give us either a website, social media contact, email address, phone number? How can folks follow you? How can folks contact you?
So my email address is Means, MEANES. Make sure you have the second E, at Thompson, THOMPSON, Coburn, COBURN.com. That's my office. If you email me, I will respond. My telephone number you can reach me at is 314-552-6349. 314-552-6349. And I'll be honest with you, I have a Facebook account, but I probably won't be back on Facebook for a while. As I shared with you guys when I was on Michael's show, both my mom and my sister died in December, and they died 5 days apart. And what I'm doing is I'm recentering myself. And so I think that outside noise on Facebook, I just don't need it right now. So if you go to Facebook and I don't accept your request, it is not, or answer or say something in response to your, whatever you sent me in Messenger, send it to me at my email address, because I don't check Messenger and I'm rarely on Facebook. Michael, can I say one last thing?
Yes,
this month is International Black Women History Month, Michael.
I love it. I love it.
Love it. Good to talk to you.
I will have you back on. You always bring the passion, bring the heat, bring the fire, but most important, bring the information. We appreciate you for all that. Like I said, you're the co-host anytime I'm on the radio. Madam President, thank you very much. I will reach out to you off the air to see when we can have you back.
I'm another mother. I'll see you later.
Very well said. Folks, you heard from Madam President Pamela Means. That's how all lawyers should be. I met her several years ago. We didn't even know each other. We happened to be panelists on a radio interview on another station, and I heard this sister bringing this heat. She heard me bringing my heat, and the rest, as they say, is history. Those of you who want to get in, please give us a call. We're on until 4 p.m. The numbers are 215-634-8065. Once again, 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. That's 866-361-0900. We'll get as many people as we can as possible, but if you don't get in before, then don't worry. Not only am I sitting in for the great Andrea Lawful Sanders from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m., I'm sitting in for the great Nick Taliaferro from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. So 6 hours of chances for you to get through. I know earlier we had Edna waiting, but that's been a long time because we had our guest on. So I don't know if we still have Edna on. If we do, we're going to go straight to Edna before our commercial break. Edna, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Edna, first of all, thank you very much for your patience, and then I'll ask you, how can we help you or how can you help us?
Hi, I had a question. My brother went to prison in 1974. It's been 46 years in Pennsylvania, and he received life. I wanted to ask you, do you see that changing? Like, he's a senior citizen now. He's 69.
The answer is yes. There's something called compassionate release. There's obviously something called pardons. The short answer is yes. What I need you to do is, if you could email me the details, his name, his inmate number, if you happen to know the CP number, that's the case or docket number from 1974, I can track it down. Email me at michaelcordx@gmail.com. That's MichaelCord, the letter X, michaelcordx@gmail.com. I need his full name. I need his date of birth. If you happen to have his inmate number, that will help. And if by chance you have his case number from 1974, that would be helpful, but I don't really need it. Once you give me that basic information, name, date of birth, and inmate number, I'll be able to track it down. It's a few questions I want to ask you now, but it's really nobody else's business, so I don't want to talk about it publicly over the radio, but I need to find out, for example, what the charges were. I assumed that it was as serious as a murder based on how long he's been in, but it could have been some other charge. If it was some other charge, I'd like to know what the complaining witness, what the victim is thinking about a possible compassionate release, because if that victim, let's say of a robbery or a rape, is willing to say, hey, the guy's been in long enough, that'll be helpful. If it's a murder case, I would then need to know what the family members of the murder victim say, because that would carry a lot of weight. In addition, I need to know the culpability of your brother. If, for example, it was a shooting, did he handle the gun, or was he just the lookout and the getaway driver? I need to know all that stuff. So email me at michaelcordx@gmail.com. I'll review the file, and I'll get back to you.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Edna. Thank you for your patience. Folks, got to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here at WURD 96.1 FM.
COVID vaccines are here, and Black physicians and scientists help to develop them. So I feel good about getting the vaccine. And with new forms of the virus now spreading, I know we need to keep up everything we're already doing. Masking up, keeping that 6-foot distance, and avoiding crowds. COVID's been doubly tough on us, so let's double down to take it down. We can do this. Learn more about getting the vaccine and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you understand the value of doing business with a company that values its clients, remember this name: Heat and Air Guys. At Heat and Air Guys, we give our clients extra value by offering lots of ways to make their lives easier, like financing for your installation. You get 18 months, no interest, no payments, 10-year parts and labor warranties, service on all makes and models, seasonal tune-ups, all offered by skilled, reliable technicians who value the opportunity to be of service to you. Call Heat and Air Guys at 610-583-3207.
Need to replace your Social Security card? In most states, you can request one online with a My Social Security account. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can also get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
That is correct. You are listening to The Source, normally hosted by Sister Andrea Lawful Sanders. She does a great job here on Thursdays from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. Unfortunately, she couldn't be doing what she does so very well. Couldn't do it today, but we'll be back in due course. If you want to hear great pro-Black, unapologetically Black radio, you got to listen to Sister Andrea Lawful Sanders. But today you have yours truly, attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest Black man in America. And keep things moving, we got Malik from Mount Airy waiting patiently. So let's go to line 1 and talk to Malik. Malik, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
As I always say, thank you for what you do for us and the listeners. But I have a question.
Certainly.
With all these bills that's popping up, the 250 laws, the laws that they're trying to make around the country, would the John Lewis Voting Act supersede all those, or would it still have to fight? Will we still have to fight to get those removed? Because it's I know it's a federal level, and then it's the federal, then it's the local, it's the state, then it's the local. Correct?
The answer is yes, and the answer to your question is yes and no. And what I mean by that is this: yes, the John Lewis bill would help, because let's say it's an election for the president of the United States or Congress, some federal office. Those 47 states that are trying to violate the rights of black voters, they would have major trouble, if not an impossibility, in order to interfere with that. So the feds would have jurisdiction over that. But let's say there are some state elections in those 47 states, like, for example, the upcoming election for governor of the state of Georgia. Well, the feds really wouldn't have much authority over that. However, if the feds do their thing effectively through this John Lewis bill, then it's going to have a ripple effect. People need to do stuff on the federal level, and also black voters and woke voters, other voters in those 47 states, including Georgia, need to do something. So you're right, Malik. That bill will help, but it won't be the be-all and end-all, because states have authority over states.
Okay. And I've been watching, the Chauvin case, and I got to be honest, listening to what I heard today, where the I want to say a lung specialist, because I don't know exactly what I just turned to.
Yeah.
He's explaining our trachea has the width of a dime. He said, but when you put the pressure of a human being on that, it shrinks to less than the size of a straw. And he said it's actually like a stirring straw. So you have, and when he started explaining it, he said at one point he literally had his knee, when he lifted his feet off the ground, he said all of his human weight was on this man's trachea. He said, and the trachea is not built for weight. He's like, it's only built to provide air, expand, and close, and allow something that you swallow to easily pass through to your stomach. He said, but when you put that much weight on there, he's like, the human body will start to do with things like, he said he had what he called a seizure. He said because he said his leg locked up because his body was pretty much panicking to try to get air. And I'm thinking, dude, this happened for 9 minutes. And if you know anything about boxing, that's 3 whole rounds. That's ungodly, man. You literally are the devil himself for you to do that. And the look on his face was, and what? Because if you think about this, he has at least 20 known complaints that have been filed, and nothing has happened to him. That's why that happened. I don't just blame the city. I blame everybody that investigated those complaints that allowed that menace to continue to do what he did until he had to be fired. Because I blame the chief too. Because you had to know those complaints had to come across your desk. Internal affairs, those complaints had to come across your desk. You can't keep telling me that this was just some rogue act that he did. You have 22 cases, and he did this. Literally, he's done this before, where he put his knee on somebody's neck or his foot on somebody's neck. That says he was okay, and he was trained to do that by somebody. I'm sick and tired of all these explanations. The chief, you're culpable too, because if you'd have stopped this man at 10, we wouldn't have this problem. If you'd have stopped him at 15, we wouldn't have this problem. You can't get up, let's just say, sweep this under the rug like you didn't know he was capable of doing it. Look, I'm getting too heated. Listen, I thank you for listening to me. Have a great day, good brother.
Thank you for your call. We appreciate that. We appreciate the calls of everybody, and you all are welcome. Give us a call at 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. That's 866-361-0900. I encourage folks to call up and talk about whatever they want to talk about, but I have to say, I'm not really feeling the Derek Chauvin trial. And the only reason I've watched as much as I have watched is because I need to be informed so that I can speak intelligently about it here on the radio and write intelligently about it in the Tribune. But let me say this in a polite way. It's all BS. And the reason it's all BS is because I don't want to get into the policies of the police department. I don't want to get into wrestling and fighting holds. I don't want to get into expert testimony. I don't want to get into drug asphyxiation. You choked that man to death on video. End of discussion. We don't need all that other extraneous stuff. It means absolutely nothing. And I'm just hoping that our listening audience appreciates that. And again, it's important to know what's going on, and we should know what's going on. But I don't want people to fall for the okie doke. You know, talking about not being able to see the forest for the trees. I don't care how many trees are in the forest. It's more than a few hundred. I don't care whether the branches are falling off some of those trees. It's still more than 100, which makes it a forest. So when people say we can't see the forest for the trees, let's not get sidetracked. That white man choked that black man to death, period. End of discussion. All that other stuff is smoke and mirrors. You know, I understand as a lawyer how the system has to work, and I respect the rights of the accused. So Derek Chauvin should be given a trial. The jury should hear the evidence. But if America was really about justice, this is how the case should have gone. Prosecution says to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want you to sit there in the jury box, and while you're sitting there in the jury box, I want you to watch a video. And while you watch that video, I want you to realize what happened to this human being. I want you to watch this video for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. So if this country was really about justice, yeah, give Derek Chauvin a trial. But when you go into that jury room as the prosecutor, you simply say to the jurors, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Watch this video. You play the video for 9 minutes, 29 seconds, and then you sit down and don't call one witness. Because that's what it's all about. And I understand in reality it can't work like that, but I just want my brothers and sisters, don't fall for the okie doke. Don't believe the hype. Don't worry about what the expert witness says. Don't worry about what the martial arts person says about chokeholds. All that's good, don't get me wrong, but it's unnecessary. That white man spent 10 minutes choking a black man to death until he died. End of discussion. I rest my case. All this other stuff is just nonsense. I know about this other stuff because I have to know about it in order to be able to talk about it. But let's do this. We got a guest who I had on the other day, but I was so impressed with him, I had to have him back for another 10, maybe 15, possibly 20 minutes, because this brother is thorough. Former police officer Norman Carter, he's part of an organization. I'm proud to say I'm part of it as well, the Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission. And this Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission is kind of sort of doing what was done at the end of apartheid in South Africa, where everybody tries to come together and figure out, hey, something wrong has been done in this system. In South Africa, it was the system of apartheid. In Philadelphia, it's the police and the district attorney's office historically relative to black people, relative to brown people, relative to poor people, relative to gay people, relative to the underclass, how the DA's office would treat them, how the police department would treat them. So now we have a woke DA in Larry Krasner, and through Reverend Gregory Holston, who headed the Power Organization, one of the greatest pastors in Philadelphia history, Reverend Holston is, they have this Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission where they're trying to get to the root of the evil and adjust it and bring about justice. And clearly, one of the best members of this group is former police officer Norman Carter. Now, all I need to tell you about Norman Carter is this. You know the story of Serpico. Well, Norman Carter is our own Serpico. I mean, he, as a police officer, did what all black cops are supposed to do. without further ado, my good friend and yours, Mr. Norman Carter. How are you today?
Fine. How are you, sir? Thank you for having me on your program.
My pleasure. And I want to turn it over to you. First, I want you to share with the listening audience what this Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission is. That's the first thing. And second, why you're such a qualified member as a former police officer. So first, what's the commission? And two, what's your resume?
Well, I think you accurately described the commission. What our mission is, number one, to bring to light the injustices that have been meted out by the Philadelphia or Pennsylvania justice system on black and brown people. In particular, we know that there are a plethora of inequities that have been reaped upon these communities. So, number one, we want to uncover, we want to reveal, we want to bring sunlight to these injustices. And then, in short, we want to reconcile, we want to change, and then there needs to be some remunerative action done to the community as a result of this. This is not just a matter of bringing to light things and saying, okay, the police department did this, the district attorney did this, and we just want to reveal it to you, and so be it. No, we want action taken. We want change. We want change in policies. We want change in thinking, and how to bring justice and fairness to the people of our community.
Very, very well said. It seems like you do this radio thing like a pro. I mean, you do it so smooth. You answer the question directly and just keep it moving. I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about your background, because when I say you're a former police officer, that's an understatement. You got a story to tell. In fact, the story is so profound, it's actually in a book. Tell us about the book. Tell us what's in the book, and tell us your story and your experiences as a former Philadelphia police officer.
I'll begin with the title because it begins to tell the story. The title of my book is The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. And it actually has to begin with my upbringing in North Philadelphia, where I saw firsthand corruption. I talk in the initial portion of my book. I talk about how a person on my block, this 2200 block of Harlan Street, was unmercifully beaten by police officers in the middle of the street so that everyone could see it. This is in broad daylight, and how that image stayed with all of us young people forever, because this meant that the police had to be feared. And I said before, the police department, the police in North Philadelphia, 23rd, 22nd Police District, they were feared, but they were not respected. And in the 60s, when this country began to go through change, the world began to go through change, and there was this upheaval in the community. And I reasoned that one of the ways to affect the system was being a positive part of the system. And I came into the police department with my idealistic views as to how police should interact with the community, and I never changed from that. I kept that focus with me throughout, which helped me relate to people a lot, but it often put me at odds with my department.
But when did you join the police department, and when did you leave the police department?
I joined the police department in March of 1967. I left in June of 1992. I retired for a year and a half, and then I joined the office, the Pennsylvania Office of Inspector General branch here in Philadelphia, where I got to see inequities in that system too, as far as the welfare system. and
wow.
Social Security benefits. It's a whole different story. But inequities meted out on poor people once again.
I'm glad you explained it that way. And at some point, I didn't know about your work after you left the police department. So it seems to me that the whole thing about law enforcement, good law enforcement, runs through your veins. And we want to talk about that sometime in the future. That's quite impressive. As I do the math, 1967 to 1992, about 25 years. Talk a little bit about that. First, repeat the story you told the other day about the black woman who was thrown in the trunk of a police car, not the back seat, but the trunk. Tell us about that again.
It was July 4th, 1968, and a police officer was at Germantown in Mount Airy and said he had an intoxicated female and he needed a wagon to come pick him up, to pick up the prisoner and transport him into the district, 14th district. Well, there were no wagons available. Everyone was busy. So as is police policy, you can put a person in the back seat of a car and then another officer will join you and follow you into the district. That's police policy. So this is what we determined that we were going to do. I was the car designated to go meet him at Germantown and Mount Airy and follow him into the district. Well, halfway up to Germantown and Mount Airy, he gets on the radio and says, I've got this. I'm on my way into the 14th district. And
let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. We got a commercial break. But I want folks to sit closely to the radio so they can hear from you exactly what happened after. Because I got to tell you, if you didn't tell me this personally in terms of what was done to this human being, this black female human being, if you hadn't told me personally, I wouldn't have believed it. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with some incredible but truthful stories from former police officer, 25-year Philadelphia police veteran, Norman Carter. First to break, WURD 96.1 FM.
Hi, it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That with me live this weekend or catch the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, we'll be discussing Black maternal health with singer-songwriter Melanie Fiona. I'll also be joined by twin MDs, Dr. Brandy Jackson and Dr. Brittany James, co-founders of the Institute of Anti-Racism in Medicine. And we'll hear from an Emmy-winning producer and mother of three, Sasha Mitchell Fuller. More Than That is brought to you by Pampers. Explore helpful pregnancy guides, free childbirth education classes, and more at pampers.com/pregnancy. Pampers, made from love.
The problem is that we are conditioned to believe childbirth and motherhood is this just very natural and easy thing for everyone. But then my labor came with all these unexpected complications that I don't feel I was prepared for. So I was trying to do everything holistically. I had my crystals, I had my essential oils burning, my doula was there with the lavender on my forehead, pressing my hips together. It just got to a point where my blood pressure wasn't going down, and they came in and they were like, you're gonna have to have a C-section. And I just remember saying to God, please surround me with people that are going to support me through this process.
When I would go to bed at night, I would think about having a beautiful birth. I was able to get an amazing doula. And I'll never forget the day I went into labor. Not only did she take care of me, but she took care of my husband who, like, you know, here I am moaning and like going through what I'm going through. And he was just sitting there like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? She was like taking care of everything. And then she also realized and noticed when I was ready to go to the hospital. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that you can come up with this beautiful birth plan and everything will go as planned, but like, I need you to offer me choices. I need you to make me feel like I matter.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives. With vaccines, we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
That is absolutely correct. You are listening to The Source, which is normally and skillfully hosted by none other than Sister Andrea Lawful Sanders on Thursdays from 1 o'clock p.m. until 4 o'clock p.m. The show is called The Source, and she does her thing so very well here. However, she was unable to be here today, but we'll be back in due course to continue her great programming, her great hosting. But today, temporarily, thanks to her and thanks to Dee Patel, the Director of Programming and News here at WRD, yours truly, Attorney Michael Cord, a.k.a. Michael X, a.k.a. the angriest black man in America, is co-hosting, or I should say guest hosting, up until 4 p.m. For the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to continue our conversation with former police officer Norman Carter, 25 years of experience as a Philadelphia police officer, then additional law enforcement work for the state after that. And his whole thing was to really use the police department, law enforcement to clearly and honestly and rightfully protect and serve. Unfortunately, many other cops didn't do that. He's talking to us now about a horrific example of some of the stuff he saw, in particular what happened to a black woman. Mr. Carter, please continue.
Yes, and thank you. And I hope that all of you can envision Germantown Avenue, at least back in 1967, full of cobblestones. And this police officer, he drives, we're going past each other, and I notice I don't see the woman in his car. And he's flying down Germantown Avenue. This is maybe, it's late at night, but there wasn't much traffic. But he's flying down Germantown Avenue 35, 40 miles an hour in a police car, and he goes by me. I don't see anyone in the car. So my assumption is that the person is laying over in the seat. Still, if that's the case, he needed a backup. So I U-turned, followed him into the district. I get into the district parking lot at the same time he did. He jumps out, he walks into the district, and I run in behind him. And he tells the people of the inside crew, all of whom were white, you guys need to see this. You guys need to see this. So I had no idea what he was talking about. So he walks out with this people, and he opens the trunk of his car, of his police car. And I don't know whether any of you have ever seen the inside trunk of a police car, but there's equipment in there inside of this car. Out comes a woman. She's somewhere between 45 and 52, 53 years old. African-American woman in the trunk of the car, medium build. She's probably like about 5'4", 5'6", maybe 130 pounds. 30 to 140 pounds.
Ooh.
So you can imagine squeezing this woman in the car, and now you're driving on a cobblestone street.
Yes,
well,
yes.
I was incensed when I saw this. I had to go back to my Black Power training.
Yes.
And I ran at this cop, and I'm yelling. And African American police officer Kenny Patterson grabbed me. Keep in mind, I had only been out of the academy about 8 months, and he grabbed me and pulled me back. And I'm yelling. I'm calling night man, who's the bosses who work at night. I'm calling the command. I'm calling all these people, and he's grabbing me and he pulls me back into the police station to a what we call the roll call room. And he says, "Man, you need to calm down." He said, "Look, you only have 8 months on the job. It's you against all of them. And you're not going to win because you're a rookie." So I said, I'm telling him, I can't allow him to treat this black woman this way. And he says, well, here's what we're going to do. Because intoxicated females have to be held at the police administration building and not in the district. So he says, we're going to stand here and watch them process this woman. We're not going to say anything, but we're just going to stand here, and we're going to watch it. And we're going to stand here until they take her out, somebody else takes her out, and transports her properly to the police administration building. And that's what we did. We had to stand there and stand guard. And the damnable part about this is this black woman probably went back to her family and friends and told them what happened to her. And they probably did not believe her. No one would believe that cops would do that. The 14th district at that time, which was the district that Frank Rizzo lived in at this particular time, was known as the most brutal police district in the city. That's what I walked into out of the police academy. But as a result of this, and I don't want to get too long in this, but as a result of this and some other incidents where I refused to allow a police officer to plant evidence on a middle-aged black man in the 200 block of Coulter Street, because I refused to participate in that, I've developed a reputation. And so older cops would not work with me because there was so much corruption and stuff going on in that community that it was almost universal. And for someone to take a stand and stand up and stand out and say, I'm not going to do that, that was unusual. And I had to be honest with you that some of my African-American police officers in that district, I actually got in verbal arguments with them about doing, because there's a quota system. There's probably still there's a quota system, and they would go and victimize black people in that community, the Germantown area, on for doing things like multiple ticket violations on a stop, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I tried to explain with this: what are you doing to our people? These people are driving cars because they need to go back and forth to work. Now you're making their insurance rates go up. You're hurting their driving record. I mean, you go do your job, but you're going to write multiple tickets on a person just so you can have favor with the sergeant. And there's not just tickets. I can tell you about specifically about people planting evidence on people. And all other kinds of things, and fabricating charges. And I talk about this in my book extensively. Manioc, Roxborough, moving a little further over, where police officers were actively involved in a burglary ring. And you may be familiar with Herb Adams.
And in fact, we got about 30 seconds left, so I want you to finish your story, but I also want you to tell us the title of the book again and how we can get a copy. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. The title of my book is The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. My name is Norman Carter. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. My website is www.bluewalkbook.com, and there are links on that website that will take you to enable you to purchase the book through the website.
I got to tell you, the more I hear from you, the more impressed I am. And I'm going to give you a call off the air to have you back, because I'll have you on one time and I say, hey, Norman Carter, I need you back a second time. I have you on the second time, I say, hey, Norman Carter, I need you back a third time. Because the more I hear from you, the more I'm so thoroughly impressed. I'm going to be repeating the name of your book and how people can get a hold of it, because we have suspicions on the outside as to what goes on inside, on that other line of that blue line. And you were there for 25 years. You can tell us. So I'm going to make sure folks know about it. I'm going to call you off there to see when we can have you come back. But I got to tell you, not only am I honored to have you on the show today and the other day, but I'm honored that there is a black man who was a cop who stood up for black people. Even as a cop, you realize that the blue is not as big as the black, and we appreciate you in that. We also appreciate the work you're doing with Larry Krasner's Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission, what you're doing with Reverend Gregory Holston, but most important, we appreciate you. I'll give you a call to see when we can have you back, because your story is compelling and people got to read the book. Thank you very, very much for spending time with us, but more important, thanks for what you have done and continue to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Folks, you heard some powerful stuff from a powerful man. Can you imagine for a quarter of a century, 25 years, he was a cop and he saw some horrible stuff and he couldn't tolerate it and he did the right thing. You got to get his book, bluewalkbook.com. That's the website, bluewalkbook.com by former police officer Norman Carter. Folks, we're about to wrap things up here. I was able to talk about a lot of stuff on my agenda, but I didn't get through it all. Why? Because we had callers and guests, and that's the most important thing. But check this out. I'm not done. I'll be back from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. today, sitting in for my good friend, my very good friend, Nick Taliaferro, guest hosting for him. Evening Words. Big shout out to Madam, Sister, Andrea Lawful Sanders for allowing me to sit in temporarily for her. She'll be back to do what she does so very well. Thank you, Andrea. I'll be back at 4 p.m. today. Keep your dial locked. WURD 96.1 FM.